Recording in progress.
What up, Doe One Pride? This is the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, the podcast where One Pride goes worldwide. My name is Anthony Fitzpatrick. I'm joined this evening by Ryan McCluskey, which can only mean one thing. It is time for your weekly dose of college knowledge. Yes, it is the college football podcast, Holy War. Ryan McCluskey, this week, Holy War descended on Salt Lake City in Utah. Oxford, Mississippi was overrun by rebels, and the army laid siege to Denton, Texas. Week 11 of the college football season. It reads like a history documentary on the National Geographic, but make no mistake, with just 3 weeks to go until the first ever 12-team playoffs, the entire landscape of college football right now, it's one big battlefield.
Yeah, there were some results this weekend that basically everything you thought you knew about the first playoff rankings, just control, alt, delete, task manager, close it down, recycle, bin it. Like I say, yeah, they were thrown into turmoil and they became irrelevant almost in an entire weekend. You could literally redo the entire top 10. But that's how it should be. Like I say, right now, nothing feels safe. I don't feel comfortable picking anyone against anyone. We're at the business season where half the bowl bids have already been taken nearly, if not most of them. Like I say, right now, if you're not got to 6 wins yet, you best hurry up because there's going to be a lot of teams, like I say again, that miss out.
Yeah, absolutely. For the second week in a row, 7 ranked teams were defeated. And I think I specifically remember saying last week, there's no way it's going to happen 2 weeks in a row. Well, it did. And 2 of them were top five. An entire state lost this weekend. Pretty much every single team, bar one at the NFL, FBS, and FCS level, were defeated in Florida. And there are just 4 unbeaten teams left. We are very much getting to that point of the season now where, one more slip up and that is all she wrote. Today, we are going to be taking a look back at the best of the action from week 11 of the college football season. We're going to be taking a look at some potential candidates for head coach of the year. There are potentially a few out there. For me, I don't know, for us, head coach isn't always just about who's got the best team, it's the best players. It's about who's doing the best job at their program with the resources they've got. Is it historically bad and they've turned it round? Are they defying expectations? Who knows? We're going to put forward some of our candidates we think for that. And of course, we're going to take a look at week 12 as well as the season is coming to an end. Let's just get all the housekeeping bits out the way first, because we got a lot to go through. Roar of the Lions UK Discord, if you want in, let us know. We'll fire the link across for that. Main podcast coming up in a few hours' time. We're talking Jacksonville Jaguars preview this week. So once you've done watching along with us, have a little bit of a break, then come back and we'll talk some Lions as well. Don't forget to like and sub everything. We really appreciate it. YouTube, Twitch, all that good sort of stuff. We're part of Lions Nation Unite as well. Herman Moore's project to bring together the best in Lions content creators from across YouTube land together into one forum to talk all stuff Lions. Just in the process of putting a video together for them at the minute, so you'll see me knocking around on there. Don't forget, we're an affiliate on Twitch, monetized on YouTube, all that good stuff. So if you want to help us that way, great. But we just love it when you're in the building, first and foremost. And we got the feedback form as well. So any comments you have to make about the shows, just let us know, and we will take them all on board. Right, we're just going to get straight down into it. But before we start the show today, I refuse to start the show today before I get an apology from Ryan McCluskey for single-handedly ruining Iowa State's season for me and taking away one of the last best things I had this year, because he's been betting against them for the last 2 weeks and they've lost. So Ryan, do you have anything to say for yourself on this? Because, it's just, you've ruined this entire thing for me at the expense of your team as well, pretty much.
I mean, I'm sorry I'm right. I'm sorry I called another big upset and said they're in trouble. I'm sorry my vast knowledge and just expert predicting came true.
Oh,
It's
you know
sad,
what?
but they've got no one to blame but themselves, unfortunately. Definitely for this week. It was ugly.
Oh, I just remember getting off work and seeing the message with me tagged in it and thinking, "Oh, good God, he's right," and so you were. But we'll chat quickly about the news first. And there's one particular piece of news that's gotten everybody going this week. There's been another fire in Ryan McCluskey, but maybe not the one that we thought was going to happen. So Kennesaw State have fired their only ever head coach, Brian Bohannon, in their first season in the FBS. So Bohannon has built the program from the ground up over the last 10 seasons. He finishes with a 72-38 record. His golden age came between 2017 and 2021. In those 5 seasons, they had four 11 plus win seasons. Recent years have been tougher with the transition approaching. So they've basically played in four different conferences in 4 years. In 20, they played in the Big South. In 21, they moved across to the ASUN for 1 year, the Atlantic Sun. Then they had 1 year as an FCS independent because in the year before you come up, you're not allowed to be in a conference. You're not allowed to go for the FCS playoffs. And then they had to move up to the CUSA this year. They're 9-20 over the last 3 years, and they're 1-8 on the season this year with that solitary huge win over Liberty a couple of weeks back. And this is a situation that's is getting very ugly, let's say. So the AD over at Kennesaw State, Milton Overton, said that Bohannon had stepped down. I think it was on Sunday that he announced this. Then Bohannon himself chimed back on X saying he hadn't stood down, he'd been fired. And then Overton chirped back to him that basically he'd done a really poor job preparing the team for the FBS and that this was a completely justified move and that, yes, actually he had been fired. And there's been some very weird battle lines drawn here. So a lot of former players and alumni have started a petition to get rid of the AD, citing horrendous facilities that they've had to use in their time there compared to other teams of their standings. Of course, fans of other teams have sort of universally panned this decision. But the interesting one is that actual Kennesaw State Owls fans don't really seem to care that much about it. I've been looking through their message boards and that today, and there's not a lot of outrage on there. And many of them actually agree with the decision after the last few years. Sam Houston head coach Casey Keeler's also had his say on this because, of course, they've just made the move up as well. And he took a veiled shot at the Kennesaw State AD, citing his own team's athletic department, understanding the difficulties of the transition. So if you remember our previews we always do for the CUSA, we told you last year Sam Houston basically redshirted their entire team for most of their last year in the FCS when they're an independent because you can't compete in a conference. You can't compete for the playoffs. So essentially it's just a practice year. And then you've got to make the step up in competition to the next level. And of course, everyone remembers from last year, Keeler's Bearcats team, they started 0-8 and they looked bad before they finished with 3 wins just to give themselves a bit of momentum. Now in year 2, they're 7-2. They've got a 4-1 record in the CUSA and they've got a bona fide shot at the championship this year if they win out, which goes to show, if you spend a bit of time and patience on these moves, then it can pay off. But I don't know, Rye. What do you make of this? It's a weird thing. This is a guy he's literally built this team from the ground up, from the very foundations, had good success with them. Yes, the results haven't been great in previous years, but you do have to take the transition into account. You've got the big win over Liberty. You've just lost in double overtime this week, so you're getting closer. I don't know. What do you make of Kennesaw State's decision here?
See, I get it, but ultimately, Brian Bohannon is the scapegoat for a team that clearly was never ready to make the jump. And I said this a year ago, the foundations out there. If you're not good at the FCS level and you're not competing there, what gives you the God-given right to think just because you've got some money lying around that you should make the transition to the FBS? And this time next year, I expect this team to be in the exact same place. I don't see them set on strong foundations to have a better year. And yeah, Bohannon is the only coach I've known, like you say, he's been there. And yeah, it feels very harsh. He's played his part in an ugly online spat. For that, I don't give him any credit for. I'll criticize them all. You don't do this out like that. And other head coaches as well, they shouldn't be piping in. It's horrible. Like, it's so embarrassing. Why are you doing this on Twitter? Like say, it's like children in a playground calling each other names. You don't do like that. If it was fired, if it resigned, it don't matter. Like I said, who wants the job now? knowing that this is what the director, kind of the position they're in. The players, like you say, will some will feel indifferently, some will feel very strongly about what happens next. It's just not very good to start life like this. There's no way they're having a Sam Houston bounce back in year two. Like I say, not they're not gonna this whole off season now will feel very tumultuous.
Yeah, because you've basically got a legacy there. So all the players, all the incoming transfers, they're all his. All that team is his, and now they're going to kind of have to list through the rest of the year. Like they could have won a game or two. It just seems odd, the timing of it. At least let him finish the year if you're going to do this, and then go elsewhere. But I don't know. It just smacks of something. And I agree with you on it. I think it'll be very difficult for them to bounce back year two right away. So. Kennesaw State are a triple option team for the most part. They run the old school way. I know the name that's getting linked very heavy to them right now is Drew Cronick. He's the offensive coordinator at Navy, who's bought them that modified wing T offense they're running, which has been so good this year. So, I mean, that would be a really good appointment for them probably because it'll probably modernize that team a bit as well. But whether they convince him to go there or not, who knows? It's
It's
not
going
been
to be a
graded
hard
as a very
sell
good job.
to
Yeah.
getting someone to convince an established program to leave to be a head coach here.
Depending on how Navy's season goes, unless they win under the American, which they still can do, if they win that, then maybe he goes, yeah, I'll go get a head coach job. But I would quite fancy it there, but I do also like Chronic at Navy. Maybe spend another year or two there. Been great first. So yeah, yeah, weird times at Kennesaw State. We'll have to see what goes on there, but certainly it's been a very ugly situation there. Brent is in the building. Hope you're doing well, Brent. He was laughing at your riposte to me a minute ago. He goes, strange firing a coach that built the program. Makes me wonder if there was something else going on behind the scenes. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Well, I do know the AD who's fired him didn't hire him. Obviously, he's been there longer than anybody else, so there's always a case when ADs don't like head coaches, then the head coach loses. So it's just a power thing. So you definitely something else going on behind the scenes there. But former players are not happy. Like I say, there's a petition out there to get rid of him. It's just very messy at this moment in time. Right, let's move it on. That's really the only bit of news today. There's a lot of stuff going on still about leagues at the minute, teams coming up, but there's nothing serious at this moment in time. So we'll come back to realignment in due course. Let's just go straight down into our week 11 review. We'll do that first because then once we've done this week of games, we can kind of look at some of the head coaches who have been doing good jobs. So as always with the state of the pod, if you're in the title, you get to go first. And there was only one game potentially we were always ever going to talk about this week, but Holy War returned for the first time in a long time. For those who don't know, it is the name given to the scrap between Brigham Young and Utah. It's a very fiercely contested rivalry. It's one of the most well-known in college football. It has been on hiatus for some time now, but the number 9 ranked BYU Cougars unbeaten on the season, looking against all odds to go win the Big 12 and to not lose a single game in the process when they were slated to finish very low in the table at the start of the year. Whereas on the flip side, Utah was slated to win it and they're right at the very bottom. Maybe you could say these teams are role reversed as to where you thought they might be before, but BYU coming into this with a ton of momentum. Utah are all over the place, quarterback issues. They just don't know who's coming along. So Brandon Rose got the start for Utah in this. It was not Isaac Wilson as had been recently. Brandon Rose is a third-year sophomore who's only ever had, I think, one relief start before. He never had a career start going into this game. This was his first, and what a game to do it at home in the Holy War. Both teams started off with a punt. Utah false started on a 4th-and-1 when they were going to go for it early, and then a joint sack from Logan Fano and Van Fillinger ended BYU's first drive. Utah then really screw up on a trick play. So Rose throws a backward pass to his wide receiver, Damian Alford. Alford then throws a cross-field pass all the way crossfield into triple coverage, misses his target by about 5 yards, puts it straight into the arms of BYU cornerback Jacob Robinson, who picks the ball off, one of the easiest picks he'll ever have in his life. And in response, BYU put together a 12-play, 57-yard drive that lasts nearly 6 minutes. But Utah's defense, to its credit, repel BYU from a first and goal at the 5. They're able to repel that drive. They have to settle for a field goal from 23. BYU lead by a field goal. Then the game goes wild. 4 of the next 5 drives go for touchdowns. So first off, Smith Snowden gets a 36-yard kick return for Utah. Rose has this bullet run up the middle for 27 before he throws a 20-yard dart to superstar tight end Brant Keithy for the touchdown, 7-3 to Utah. But BYU hit back in 15 seconds. Wide receiver Keelan Marion, he gets the kick return. He takes matters into his own hands. He's able to hit a huge gap down the left-hand side of the field, fakes out the kicker who completely screws up a tackle on him. He houses it from 96 yards out. It's his second kick return touchdown of the season. And just like that, BYU back in front, 10-7. Utah then respond, though. They have a punitive 12-play, 75-yard drive, the highlight of which was a 36-yard laser from Rose to Dorian Singer. He perfectly dissected coverage down the middle of the field for that before they get down to the 1-yard line. And the tight end Keithy, he takes a wildcat snap from the 1, and he basically just high steps his way into the end zone. A bit of a cocky play from him there, but still effective nonetheless for his second touchdown of the day. So puts Utah 14-10 back up. Utah's defense then makes a really good stop. So they defend a 2nd and 1 at the BYU 47. They force a turnover on downs. They defend 3 plays in a row, defending just a solitary yard. Great play from them. So Utah get the ball at BYU's 45. A face max penalty on a potential sack takes it down to the 30. A 14-yard completion to Singer takes it down to the 15. A personal foul on Isaiah Bagner then takes it all the way down to the 7. Micah Bernard finishes it off. He leaks out the backfield, makes a touchdown grab from Rose. That is 3 straight Utah touchdown drives at this point to put them 21-10 ahead. BYU have 1:40 left before the half, but they can't get close enough, and a false start penalty on them ends the half. Coming out of halftime, second half starts with 3 straight punts, 2 for BYU, 1 for Utah. Then the Utah quarterback has a complete meltdown. He fires a pass down the middle of the field straight to BYU safety Crew Wakely when his receiver had ran an out route. I think he thought he was coming back inside. He ran out. He threw the ball right to the safety. LJ Martin on the back of this bursts out a 40-yard run down to the Utah 15. It would have been a house call if not for a great track back tackle from the cornerback Zemiah Vaughn. But once again, the Utes defense holds. They don't give up a single yard on a 1st and goal from the 15. Will Ferrin has to hit a field goal from 33 to bring it back to 21-13 to Utah. But then Utah's offense just dies. They have a 9-play, 36-yard drive that takes 6 minutes, all just to punt. And then BYU picked the perfect time to put their only touchdown drive of the day together. It's 9 plays, 95 yards. Retzlaff at quarterback completely dices Utah up. He has completions of 19 yards to Kalen Marion, 27 yards to Darius Lassiter, 32 to Chase Roberts. And then they have 5 successive runs from the 12-yard line. They pile drive it into the end zone. Retzlaff gets the rushing touchdown for that. They try a 2-pointer, which fails. So it's 21-19. Utah still winning. We're in the 4th quarter at this point, and we get 5 successive punts as just defense takes over. Utah go 4 plays, 16 yards, punt. BYU go 3 plays, minus 11 yards because Retzlaff fumbles back to one of his own offensive linemen, punt. Utah 3 plays, 1 yard, punt. BYU 5 plays, 3 yards, punt, and there's two sacks from Utah on this drive. Kareem Reed and Zamiah Vaughan both get to Retzlaff to keep that drive down. This takes it all the way down to um 1 minute and oh sorry, there's 1 minute 48 to go at this point, and it's still 21-19 to Utah. BYU get the ball at their own 9. So Utah get them to 4th and 10 at BYU's own 9. And on 4th down, Junior Tafuna and Kareem Reed sack Retzlaff all the way back at the 1 to end the game. But do they? A flag comes in fairly late. The cornerback Zamiah Vaughan is pinged for defensive holding, which was that ill received by Utah that after the game, the AD came down, stormed into the press conference, and accused the refs of stealing the game away from them. But it's a defensive holding penalty. It gives BYU a first down, and I think deep down it breaks the Utes defense to pieces. So Retzlaff, he has a completion of 30 to Chase Roberts, another 12 to Darius Lassiter, and a 14-yard Hinckley Rapati run gets them down to the Utah 25. They run the clock right the way down. Ferrin nails the kick from 44 with 3 seconds left to put BYU 1 point up. And Utah have no choice but to return this thing. They can only return it. Smith Snowden gets 35 yards, but he's taken down at midfield. And BYU sneak away with their unbeaten streak intact. But Ryan, we've been waiting a long time to see Holy War again, and this game did not disappoint. An offensive ding-dong in the first half, a defensive ding-dong in the second half, contentious calls, players in each other's faces. This was everything pretty much we thought it would be.
Yeah, I had a feeling this game would be remembered for some of the wrong things. Everyone knows it's the holding call. That's the only thing anyone on Twitter talked about after this game. Because if you watch videos of it, it's absolute bullshit. But BYU were bailed
I've
out.
seen it.
Yeah, it's bad. But yeah, Utah suffered. I saw Rose has suffered a season injury. So they're down to literally just Isaac Wilson. I think Brent Cuffey as well apparently won't play again this year. Well, won't play again now for Utah. I think he's seen those. So yeah, this week could not have gone worse for the Utah Utes. Like I say, it was sloppy. Like I say, costly turnovers, negative plays. Micah Bernard, like I say, BYU were able to bottle him up, only getting 78 rushing yards. That's pretty low by his standards. It turned into, but there were some splash plays, like I say, Dorian Singer, the former Arizona Wildcat, had a good day. He's not made a huge impact, I don't feel like, since he's transferred there. He's found it quite difficult at times to become a top target, but he had a good day. BYU defense has just been so good all year at generating turnovers. Their cornerbacks, their safety is very comfortable. Guys up front are able to get pressure. And yeah, the drives they just find ways to keep plugging, keep marching. Field position as well. I've watched BYU all year, and their starting field position is just very impressive in most weeks. Their return on kicks and punts is really good. They're really well blocked. So it was another game where special teams was massive. I'd say 3 kick returns for like 140 yards, then the field goals 3 out of 3. All the units for BYU just clicking, but they left it so late. Like they said, they really did have to dig themselves out of a hole in the end. I suppose that's a sign of a team that is just designed to win. Like you say, it keeps going right to the end, finds ways to win, whether they get help or not. Yeah, but like I say, it was touchy. I saw there's been arrests. The fans, like I say, the crowds, it was rowdy. It was everything that they didn't like last time. That's why they stopped it for a couple of years because this game's caused a lot of trouble in the Forest in the past. I'm glad to see it back. And for as long as it continues right now, BYU I expect to be the team that probably gets its nose in front. Because Utah, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the next couple of years, unless they sort out certain positions like quarterback, I feel like they're going to struggle. Whereas BYU now will start to grow in strength and maybe become a bit of a Big 12 powerhouse in recent seasons. So yeah, this kind of summed up all the years. One team can't finish and get over the line and leaves points on the board. The other team, like I say, that is destined to make the playoffs, it looks like, finds ways to win, hangs about, and they just make themselves a general nuisance all game.
And you have to feel because I this was a pick watch game and I was the only one who picked Utah in this and I was devastated when that thing went in at the end. But I based it on the fact that they're at home. That Utah defense is nasty, and you talk about the three phases of the BYU team being good. The one thing you can't deny with Utah is that defense. A first and goal stop from the 5, stopping a first and 10 from the 15, both keeping them to field goals, getting a turnover on downs at midfield on a second and 1. These guys had 9 tackles for loss on the day, 5 in the passing game, 4 in the running game, 3 sacks. They kept BYU to 6% on third downs. They were 1 of 12 on third downs. They kept them to 25% down in the red zone. Like, it's it's so hard you've got to feel so bad for this Utah defense, right? Just making plays all game long. It only gave up 1 touchdown drive. One of the touchdowns BYU got was a kick return. That's a special teams thing. They've given up they've given up 2 field goals and a touchdown and they've still lost. It's still a wonderfully coached unit though with some terrific players on there.
Yeah, their offense is rotten because they've relied on the players like Brent Kofi and Cam Rising. They should have been ousted years ago. You can't rely on these, like say, guys that have got poor health. You can't just cling on to them now. Now they're gone. I hope they'll be better for it. They need some new blood in the offense. Like I said, they need to find a way to fully commit to Micah Bernard and actually put him in positions to do damage week in, week out. Like I said, the defense will always hold up its end of the bargain. That's how well it's coached and how it's built. It'll always kind of keep you in there. But their offense, like you say, continue this season, it's let themselves down at times. And that is probably why their record is what it is, because of the lack of complementary football.
Yeah, absolutely. I say some good performances on that Utah D line. Van Fillinger had 5 pressures on there. He had a sack on there. Kareem Reed, outside linebacker, he had a sack as well. Zamaya Vaughn, that was so cruel on him because I know he did hold a little bit, but the BYU receiver grabbed his face mask. Like at worst, that is an offsetting penalty for a face mask call, grabbing him to the ground. It leaves a sour taste in the throat. But I guess for BYU, this is resilience, right? When you need to, you had to get there. You needed the touchdown drive, you got one. You get the drive going at the end, you get a bit of ultimately. With so many of these scrappy teams still around now, like Army, Indiana, they're finding ways to win, and you can't, and that is the sign of a good team, even if they're scraping through, right?
Yeah, BYU have won a lot of games ugly. The SMU game they played earlier in the year, God, that might have been the ugliest game I watched. What was it, like 15-13 going into like the fourth quarter near the end? Both defenses just teed off on each other. There were no offense in that game at all. And this was very much in the same sense, like you say, where both offenses, for the most part, struggled all day. And it was the one that was going to be able to take advantage on special teams, like say, that really was able to kind of get the nose out. And then, yeah, fortuitous. Maybe it was. Maybe it was a terrible call, and maybe it will. They'll look back on it in a few weeks and be like, "Wow, we got away with one there. We're in the playoffs." Like I say, so yeah. But they say you make your own luck, don't you? So maybe Lady Luck is shining down on them. There's still a few difficult games left, but they're 1 or 2 wins away from a Big 12 title berth being all locked up. So I don't think they'll be too bothered about social media and what people think of that call. They'll just want to forget the game and move on.
Absolutely, agree with you there. So well done to BYU, commiserations to Utah, but again, absolutely tremendous game to watch and one that will be studied probably a lot going into the postseason if some of these
Is it
prospects come
yearly?
up. I well no, because
Or is
I
it just how it works with opponents
it'll be with the
scheduled?
Big 12 schedule because it's a big conference now, right? Like one of the things I'm noticing this year that there are more undefeated teams in conferences, like the Big 12, like the Big 10, because they don't play each other really. You got two undefeated teams there, but you got 4 teams
I think now in
undefeated.
a 16-team
One
conference,
loss.
I think it takes 3 or 4 years, doesn't it, to play
Yeah,
everyone?
yeah. So you're noticing there's a lot more. there's a lot more condensement at the top because a lot of the top teams are just not playing one another. And a lot of the bottom teams are, and a lot of teams are getting easy wins. Think Ohio State. I mean, it's like they played Oregon this year, but played a lot of bottom feeders down in the Big Ten as well. Indiana haven't played any of the other big fish just yet either. So it's leading to an interesting dynamic there. One we'll have to keep an eye on. So yeah, Holy War is there. The other sort of main game I want to focus on, and this is a team we've mentioned a little bit this year. So we like to sort of shine the spotlight on a team that's maybe not getting as much love or appreciation as other ones are out there. Stories not been told. And there's a story happening in the Sun Belt this year, right, that we've kind of had a look at from a distance, and a particular team that has really resurged in its third year there. And we're talking about the Louisiana Ragin Cajuns and their year three leap under coach Michael DeSormo. So they had their homecoming game this weekend against Arkansas State, who are a Sun Belt West rival, and they absolutely trounced them 55-19 to send their fans home happy. And just taking a look at this Louisiana team and just really what's gone on there. So their 2024 record as of now, they are 8-1. They're 5-0 in the Sun Belt. Their only loss this year has come to Tulane, who are a one-loss team in the American, but they're unbeaten in the American. A good team, Tulane are. So I mentioned the coach is Michael DeSormo. He's 38. It's his third season there. He's an offensively minded coach. He's a Raging Cajun through and through. He was a college quarterback in Lafayette for 4 years. He's been on the coaching staff since 2016. He's coached the receivers, tight ends. He was interim head coach, assistant head coach. He was the guy who replaced Billy Napier when he went to Florida, and things didn't click in the first 2 years. He went 6-7 in what was a very inconsistent first year, although he had 4 defeats that were by a score or less, by less than a score, sorry. They had a better schedule last year. They started 5-3, but then they bottomed out for the season to finish 6-7 again. And we took a look at this team, consecutive 6-7s. This felt like a really critical year for him to start taking strides forward. And I mean, boy, have they. If they win their game against South Alabama this weekend, they will wrap up the Sun Belt West with 2 games to spare because all the teams below them are 3-win teams. They're a 5-win team, and they've beaten them all, or they will have. So what have the factors been behind this sudden return to form then for them? There's a few. So the quarterback is one of the first areas you go to. In his first year, he had to use 2 starting quarterbacks. In his second year, he had to use 3. There was Zion Chris, Chandler Fields, Ben Wooldridge. And coming into this year, the job was open. And we wondered, because all these quarterbacks have been injured. They're all injury prone, but it was the 7th-year senior, Ben Wooldridge, who got the job. He got the job this year, and he's been the sole starter. He's stayed fully healthy. He's brought stability to this offense. So he's thrown for 2,301 yards and 17 touchdowns with just 4 interceptions on the season. A very healthy 69% completion percentage for him there. Those are very good numbers for the quarterback. You then go to the offensive line. They had 4 of 5 starters return from what was a pretty good unit in 2023 already. You've got the left guard, AJ Gill, the center, Landon Burton, the right guard, Jax Harrington, and the right tackle, George Jackson. The run game has improved this year. It went from 41st last year to 34th currently, so it's a pretty good unit, always has been, but it's the pass pro that's gotten a lot better. They gave up 25 sacks in 2023, but through 9 games this year so far, they've only given up 10, keeping the QB upright, they're keeping him healthy, and they're giving him a really good run game to work with, which has led to a really balanced offense. This team ranks 13th nationally in total offense this year compared to 57th last year. All this new offensive output is allowing them to control games. They rank 12th nationally in time of possession, and their scoring offense has got a little bit better. They've moved from 30th to 24th. And this offense has, as I say, a really good running back committee. So they're grinding teams down with a deep running back room who they're keeping fresh So you got Bill Davis. He's got 585 yards and 5 touchdowns at 6 yards per carry. Zylan Perry, 463 yards and 2 touchdowns at 6.3 yards per carry. Draylon Washington, 412 yards and 5 touchdowns at 7.4 yards per carry. And then the quarterback, Wooldridge, he's got 5 rushing touchdowns. He's got 250 yards. He's running at just under 5 yards per carry as well. So it's a room they can just keep rotating and grinding people down with. And they've got the receiving depth this year. They lost most of their good receivers last year, but Terrence Carter's stepped up at tight end. He's the leading receiver on the team, 560 yards, 4 touchdowns. The second-year Maryland transfer, Lance Legendra, he stepped in the receiving room, 513 yards and 4 touchdowns. But outside of that, they've no one else over 300 yards. Instead, they've just got a big bunch of guys who are basically chipping in with yards, chipping in with touchdowns. They're not relying on any huge stars, but makes them more difficult to defend because the ball's getting spread all over the place for them. And then takeaways and turnovers has been big for them. So last year, they got 22 takeaways, which is a lot, but they negated a lot of those benefits by turning it over 21 times as well. And a lot of that was down to the quarterback instability. The takeaways, they've fallen off this year. So they've got just 12 so far this year. But the critical part is the turnovers. They've got just 4 turnovers in 10 games. They're taking the ball away and they're not giving it back. They don't have a single fumble turnover all season, which for a team that runs the ball as much as they do, it's impressive and it's a testament to the ball security of their running backs. So basically this offense, it was good last year, but it's refined and it's just done everything it didn't do last year. And it's basically a full offense now. And then you move into the defense. Now, not really down as much to them, but the secondaries and the safeties, this is the reason why they're doing so well. So they've got a new defensive coordinator, Jim Salgado. He's vastly experienced defensive backs coach. He was recently in the NFL with Buffalo in the early 20s, and you know how many good DBs they've had there. It's no surprise his top 4 graded defenders are in the secondary, but it's his safety tandem, Tyree Skipper, Tyrone Lewis Jr., who are fueling this fire. They both have 4 interceptions each, which is career highs for both. Wonder which else other teams out there have safety tandems that are racking up the interceptions this year. No, can't think of any. And they've got another 5 combined pass breakups between them. The cornerback room is holding its own without the shiny stats, but Justin Agu's been the star there. He's given up 14 receptions on 31 targets, just 45%. Got 3 pass breakups in there. But overall, the passing defense has gone from 51st to 17th. This is a top 20 unit. Now, that's helped hugely because, as I mentioned, the run game and the third down defense, which were both awful last year for the Cajuns, haven't really gotten any better. But with less air yards coming their way, it's sort of mitigating the effect of those factors. They've kept the opposition under 20 points 5 times in 9 games, and they've given up 30 points just twice. I mean, right, we've talked about them the last few years now, and I know 2 6-7 seasons isn't the worst in the world, but for them, under Napier, they were a Sun Belt powerhouse. That wasn't good enough, but this year, we're starting to see the return of Dad. He's back to form now. We know what Louisiana are good at, running the football, takeaways in the secondary. We drafted a Louisiana safety 6 years ago. We know what they're all about. This team seems to have refound its identity under a coach who knows the team inside and out. Seems to have finally clicked there, and the Sun Belt has a new danger in there now with Louisiana.
Yeah, as you say, 6 and 7. It's nothing a lot of teams would be very happy with that. But when you're a team that, like I say, has a kind of a conference in a stranglehold like they did for years, like it always felt like preseason polls, you'd see Ragin Cajuns in the top 2. And they had, like you say, now professional quarterback in Europe, Levi Lewis at the Barcelona Dragons. But he was like their stalwart guy for a couple of years, a guy that you could rely on. He would play there. He would be the only guy he'd play. He left, and then they're like, oh, what do we do now? And then this conveyor belt in recent years, like I say, quarterbacks, like I say, whether it's through his own issues of, like I say, trying to guys that just didn't work, didn't fit the system, injuries, unable to settle on a guy. And now suppose, like say, the short-term rewards of finding, like say, a super senior that is very experienced, having a career year. He's kind of, like say, this year established himself, made a mark. He commands a good offense, not with overly flashy play, but deadly, super efficient, no turnovers. Bet, like say, no turnover, noteworthy plays most games. Very rarely ever puts the ball in harm's way, and then, like I say, keeps them moving up and down the field very well. And then a defense, like I say, strong secondary where a lot of opposing teams in the Sun Belts fear throwing at because there's a good chance you'll be punished if you just even the slightest bit off. Like say, if you're just not in sync by a second or two, there's a good chance one of these guys will be in the way to make a play. So yeah, on the back end and then under center, the key parts behind the offensive line, everything right now is clicking. Like I said, they're gonna with room to spare wrap up a Sun Belt berth. And I suppose do we have to consider? I suppose if Boise State do slip up, I suppose they're going to be in that chasing pack, aren't they, for the Power Five play? If they win out now, win the game, and let's say Boise State were to lose what two of their last three games, I suppose they'd be out. And then you kind of look at a Raging Cajuns and think, well, I put them there. Does the committee actually consider them a prospect? With their record, you'd have to consider them. So they're certainly in the chasing pack, applying pressure. The Broncos know behind them there's a group of teams right there just waiting to, if they slip up, kind of jump on them. And the Raging Cajuns will be one of those that consider themselves in that party.
I think it was they were ranked like this. They're like seventh in the group of five rankings for the playoff position, which I think is pretty low. But I think a lot of the Mountain West teams have strength of schedule on them. For them, their loss is Tulane, so they need Tulane to get to the American Championship game,
Yeah.
then
Tulane are currently
lose.
ranked 25th, aren't they? So they're a
Yeah,
ranked team. They need them to get to the championship game.
get to the championship game, but then lose because obviously Tulane will get in over them if they've got the head to head and they both win. So you need a little bit of stuff there. But I think they're on the periphery. We'll talk about the playoff picture later, but I think two group of five teams should get in this year because I don't think there's a lot of teams in the Power Four who deserve to get in the playoffs this year. We're talking two, three lost teams potentially. We got five SEC teams in the top 12 right now, and you're telling me that five of them are good enough to get in the playoffs this year? No, they are
Is
not.
this the last year of Sun Belt East and West? It
I
isn't it?
don't. I would have to check. Off the top of my mind, I don't.
They only had, I
I'm
think, a year or two left, didn't they?
because
I
they're
don't know.
the
Can they
only.
enforce? Can they enforce this change on conferences? They can't, can they?
No, I think they're the only ones left now who run the conference structure, I believe, or the MAC. The
Yeah, they've
MAC
got.
do. I don't know the MAC. No, the MAC don't
No, no, they're the
anymore.
only ones that've got
Yeah, they're the
divisions
last
still. Yeah,
ones. They're the last ones. Maybe they are. I'm not sure. But obviously, they're a bit of a. They've not had too many influx. Like they have the big influx from the CUSA, but I don't think there's any more future realignment there. So I don't. I think it works. I think they've got two very talented, divisions which make a competitive game. So you don't need to get rid of that. I don't know. But yeah, Louisiana being good this year is better for the Sun Belt. They have markedly improved, so we'll see how they get on. But they could win the Sun Belt West this weekend, so good for them. See, Mile Marker's in the building. Hope you're doing well, Mile Marker. And speaking of apologies, we probably owe Mile Marker an apology for bigging up Minnesota so much last week because, of course, it was going to come back and bite us. So we apologize, Mile Marker, for what happened at the weekend. I don't know
God,
what
the team
did.
they lost to as well. Ugh,
They lost to Rutgers without Kyle Monangai. That's
that
even
have lost
worse.
four in a row.
Yeah. We're sorry, Mile Marker. We put the curse on you. Guilty as charged. Apologies. Right, let's move on. So yeah, that's everything about Louisiana, and we're gonna go into the upset area of this now, down into the Dark Horse Dungeon, and was mentioned. Seven ranked teams went down. We've got six to talk about here, but we'll start at the one which I know will give Ryan the most pleasure because for years and years and years he's backed a certain team very religiously, and every time it's come to the chase, they've let him down. Last week, I think, was last chance saloon for this team in his good graces, and otherwise that was going to be it. And for once, they came through, and they've thrown the SEC into absolute disarray because the Ole Miss Rebels at home against the Georgia Bulldogs, 16-2 in the rankings, and Old Miss, this wasn't. Yeah, This was not a competitive game.
Nope.
They
They
beat them
dominated.
28-10. The Ole Miss Rebels did, and this, Ryan, is the Ole Miss team we were expecting to see at the start of the year, which is full of talent and can come up against some of these really good opponents and win. You know, Georgia started off hot in this one. They actually converted a fourth and goal at the two. Nate Frazier had a 2-yard touchdown run. Georgia got brave early, and it paid off. But the next four scores went to Ole Miss in the first half. Ulysses Bentley had a touchdown run from 9 yards out, and then there were three field goals from Caden Davis, the kicker, from 23, 43, and 53. So, a bit of continuity there to put them 16-7 up at the half. Georgia got a field goal just after halftime. Peyton Woodring got a 23-yarder in for them. But then that was it for Georgia. Antoine Wells Jr. had a touchdown reception from Jackson Dart from 10 yards out. They tried a two-pointer, which failed, put them up 22-10. And then in the fourth quarter, towards the end, they got two field goals. Caden Davis earned his money. He had field goals from 24 yards and 32 yards, as Georgia never, after that first touchdown, really looked like threatening in this game, and we just saw the best version of Ole Miss. It wasn't the best, it wasn't the most fluid offensively. Jackson Dart, he was 13 of 22 for 193 yards, a touchdown and a pick, and they didn't run the ball particularly well. He was lead rusher with 56 yards. Ulysses Bentley was only going at 2 yards per carry. It was a little tough. They had 138 yards rushing. Georgia only had 99. They did most of their damage through the air. They brought in the backup later on, which is the biggest insult really possible to Georgia. Austin Simmons came in and he completed 5 of 6 for 64. But Old Miss finally get their statement win, and maybe, just maybe, their playoff hopes are not as dead as we thought.
Yeah, for another week they cling on the playoffs hopes. But no, to be fair, this is one of the best. I think they said this was one of the best wins in Ole Miss history. I think it was like the first time they've beaten a top AP2 ranked side in history. I think that's what it was. It's something like that. This is by far the biggest win of Lane Kiffin's coaching career. Because every time he's come up against anyone in like top 5 AP, or like say Georgia or Obama, he's shit the bed. Like I say, and he knows it. But laser focused in. Like I say, it starts well. Jackson Dart, like I say, goes down. They're really worried with the ankle, limps out. Like I say, he looks like he could be done. Comes back out, limps out on the field. And to be fair, the moment he came back, he was so composed. He looked so calm. Bear in mind, the weather was not good as well. Like I say, the fans were drenched. It was windy. Like I say, and they did all this without Trey Harris, like one of the best receivers in the nation, who's missed 2 or 3 games now. They didn't have him, so they couldn't rely on him. But yeah, finally the transfer showed up. Walter Nolan, Princely Uman Malin. The Ole Miss D-line was the MVP of this game. It harassed Carson Beck. It swallowed up the run game. Finally, Georgia's O-line had kind of met its match for someone. Like I say, they were constantly harrying, constantly harassing, chasing him out of the pocket, bringing it down, stuffing the running game. Like I say, the defensive Ole Miss was just brilliant. And then the defensive backs, their coverage was tight. It was sticky. And then when they got chances to make plays on the ball, they took them. So I was very impressed by, like I say, when everything was on the line. Like I say, that the Ole Miss players, their discipline as well. We know these two teams sometimes can lose discipline, especially against certain teams where they get in their heads to get rattled. Didn't let it happen, the Rebels. They kept their cool. They kept the penalties to a minimum. Like I said, they kept themselves ahead of the chains. And yeah, pick up one of the best wins in recent program history. And they thoroughly deserved it. And it just puts further doubt to my mind about Beck, about Georgia, about where this team is going. Like I say, are their playoff hopes dead? Uh, well, if you ask the committee, they'd probably say no somehow still because it's the SEC. I'd say yes. I'd say Ole Miss bought themselves another week. But yeah, this was one of them wins where throws the playoffs into rankings. The SEC now is totally wide open. it's in a lot of teams' hands now. And yeah, Lane Kiffin gets that win that buys him another year. Like you say, it kind of keeps the hounds at bay at the door, trying to snap at his heels, like you say. So he's back in the good books of the Rebels fans. And yeah, going to be an interesting year to see how it pans out now. Like you say, if they win the remaining games, they'll firmly be there at the end of the year. They'll be back in the contention for at least a playoff spot.
I mean, you mentioned just how great that Ole Miss defense was. 20% havoc rate. One in every five plays was a negative play for Georgia. That's 95th percentile. So they had 10 tackles for loss, six in the passing game, four against the run, five sacks, one interception, four forced fumbles on the day. They won the turnover battle by two, and this was just absolutely crazy in terms. And you said the big guns came out. Princely, Uman Malin, six quarterback pressures, two sacks, two quarterback hits, two hurries. The other defensive end, Jared Ivey, two sacks on the day for him. Walter Nolan, just a run stuffing machine in there. It's not often you see the Georgia offensive line get manhandled like that, but it stopped them. Like 99 rushing yards is that. Beck just looked very uncomfortable. He doesn't look like a good prospect at the minute, right? But Princely, that could be the game he did, because it felt like his stock was just a little stale in the draft circuit. It didn't start necessarily too well for him, but in this one, this feels like he's back on track now, especially if they get to the playoffs and he's got more bigger platforms to showcase himself on.
Yeah, he's been getting sacks, but in the big games, on the big stages, sometimes you feel like he'd go missing. Like if you ask, like say a lot of experts, they say he's got it all. He's got the bend, he's got the long arms, the long legs, the size, the speed, the motor to be an NFL pass rusher. Like I say, the whole can he play against the run? That's a question for someone with more expertise than me. I'd say maybe not the next level, but as a pass rusher, as like a Jared Verse kind of guy or a Latu that wants to get around the outside and get to the quarterback, Princely's got it. We saw it at Florida. We're seeing it now, and yeah, if he can get there, he could benefit from a deep playoff run and trying to play it like you say, you risk the injury by playing in the games, you risk getting to the national title, and then you worry about your draft stock after. Like, so if you get a couple of sacks in the playoffs, he's back in the first round potentially. Like I say, he's on the periphery right now. A lot of guys love him because he's just an athletic freak. And like I say, the production's there. It's just, can he be the guy that they lean on? When, like I said, when someone needs to make a big play, can he be the one that does it?
Exactly. But at least for this one, they showed, and that's big now because this just you've got a two-loss Alabama, you've got a two-loss
A&M.
Ole Miss, you've got a two-loss A&M. Like one more win, and you can't be putting three-loss teams in there now. But the intriguing thing is now Georgia, Tennessee this week. Georgia beat Tennessee. Tennessee become a two-loss team. So all these SEC teams with two losses. I get this inevitable feeling that the committee's going to find a way to shoehorn them all in with two losses because they'll beat each other. They'll say they've got strength of schedule because they're all up in the playoffs. I don't know. I've got this sneaking suspicion that this is going to work in the SEC's favor by them beating one another.
Probably. Probably look at it and say all the two-loss EC teams would beat all the one-loss and one-loss Big 12 and Big 10 teams comfortably. That's probably what they'll say. And they'd probably be right. And that'll be their justification for putting them in to make good matchups.
Who's the
So
best?
someone's going to pay the price.
Who's the best team in the SEC right now? Who's winning it? I think Texas are the only one-loss team right
Texas.
now, but are they the best team in the like? I look at all these and I don't see an outstanding candidate from them. I don't see someone who screams to me, "You're going to win this thing,"
No, there's no front runner. There's no outlier. Like
because
say
you
Texas, let's say, have handled their business better than anyone. And like so on paper, they're swanky, but it don't mean they're the best team.
because you
No.
could have Georgia beat Tennessee. If Texas A&M beat Texas, that's a two-loss Texas, a two-loss A&M, a two-loss Georgia, a two-loss Tennessee, a two-loss Alabama.
I
Like,
mean, it's going to come down to common opponents, in it. That's how
yeah,
they're going to have to work it out. Who's played who and who did better against
I
common
just
opponents.
I don't know. Yeah, I just don't see an outstanding team there right now. And again, it feels like none of them should make the playoffs rather than all of them. But I know they're going to go with more of them, so it's a shame. Like the Big 12 and these are going to suffer. So yeah, well done, Ole Miss. They finally got that win they needed, and like you say, Lane Kiffin now has a little bit of room to work again. On the flip side, a
I
coach
also
who,
saw as well they flipped two five-star wide receivers today.
oh,
One from Georgia, one from Georgia, and one from Bama in the wake of this win.
it's flip time at the minute, isn't it? You seen
Yeah,
Lincoln Riley's about to lose his star commit to USC to
Julian
Colorado.
Lewis. Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
oh, I think Georgia are in on him now, but
yeah.
Colorado are meant to get him. It's like if Riley loses his, like he's known for his quarterback commits, and he's banking on him for the future. If he loses him,
A lot of these kids they watch the games,
they
and
do.
like one loss can just turn them off. It can just be like I'm opening my commitment again.
Not naming any teams, Florida State, but they're hemorrhaging
One
commits at a
win, like you
rate
say,
not at the minute.
Ole Miss gets its biggest program win. Everyone wants to go hot toddy.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That is the power of a win. That is what it can do for your team. So, and a lot of these players are going to lose this year. Like Nolan will probably come to the draft. Princely will come to
Nolan,
the
Princely,
draft.
yeah. Jackson Dart, I'm not sure about. I find him so hard to work
To
out.
and a lot of analysts do as well. You
Yeah.
keep hearing they're out on him, they're
Yeah,
in
because
on
you look at him,
him.
like you say, statistically, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Heisman watch, back in the Heisman race, like you say, build, speed, talent, processing, all there. But like you say, if you told me tomorrow what round would he go in, could be a first round quarterback, could be a fourth round quarterback.
Yeah, I have
No idea.
no idea. Not a Scooby. I guess it depends on the class that declares this year, but I don't have a clue as it stands right now. But yeah, Ole Miss's season is alive and kicking once again. And as I say, Lane Kiffin's given himself some breathing room. On the flip side, a coach who's given himself some breathing room and is now under a little bit of pressure again. And this hurts me to say 'cause it was one of my last good predictions out there this year. The Miami Hurricanes, Ryan. Maybe we were waiting for their inevitable slip up. And if I'm right, was it the same team that screwed them last year on that when they should have kneeled it out and they didn't and they lost? I
They
believe
fumbled, yeah.
they've done it again. Georgia Tech. And Georgia Tech are such an annoying team this year. They've beaten Florida State, and now they've beaten Miami of Florida, and they're a three-loss team in the ACC. It's like, get your stuff together, man. You can't win these games and then be such an average outfit. But the Hurricanes go down 28 to 23, and that's your other top five team that lost this weekend, and they've been penalized heavily in the rankings. Like the weakness of the ACC has been broke. I think they're down to 12th. They've gone from fourth to 12th. When Ohio State lost, they went down two spots to Oregon. Now, Miami are fighting to get back in the playoffs again, and they're now third in the ACC, believe it or not. But this was just another game where this wasn't necessarily down on Cam Ward. He was 25 of 39 for 330 yards and three touchdowns, but his run game wasn't quite there. And for Georgia Tech, they did bring their run game to town. They rushed for nearly 300 yards on Miami, able to keep the ball, able to do it well. They only threw for 99 yards on the day, and Haynes King got hurt in this one as well. He was out for some time with it, but three sacks for Georgia Tech's defense. They hassled him on the day. Miami didn't get a single sack. They got seven tackles for loss, but it was all against Georgia Tech's run game. But when a team's run heavy, that doesn't really mean that much. You need to you need to create some big plays and turnovers. They didn't get a single turnover on the day. Georgia Tech won that by 1-1, and it was just this was old Miami, right? We've been impressed by their resilience this year, and they've dug themselves out some holes, and they do look a lot different from previous years. And they're still only a one-loss team, still perfectly capable of getting to the ACC title game, but there's still a little bit of the old Miami left in there yet. They've still got these defeats in them, which they shouldn't really be losing, and they did once again.
I mean, I think I speak on behalf of the nation when everyone was waiting for Miami to lose. We all knew they were going to lose at some point, and they've been hit. They've only been crucified in the rankings because of almost lost to Virginia Tech. Week later, well, should have lost to Virginia Tech. Week later, should have lost to Cal. A week later, could have lost to Louisville. So we've known this were coming for weeks. Like I said, those were three performances where defensively they were garbage. They also, like I say, weren't good against Duke. They pulled away at the end, but for two, 3 quarters, they were playing with their food. And that's what the Hurricanes do. They play with their food. They like to toy about with teams. Like I say, get drawn out into these messy battles. And then when a team comes in and says, we're not going to play you games, we're going to shut down your offense. Like I say, we're going to go into a defensive tussle, like the Yellow Jackets did, who are a very stingy side that has got the ability to run the ball and play really well in the trenches. Miami don't want to play them games. That's not the playground they want to be in. And then we see the bad side of Cam Ward, the Superman plays we don't want to see. The fumble that ended the game. Who thinks they've got that much time in the pocket to like he thought he was on Strictly Dancing with the Stars. Like he was Viennese waltzing round and the ball was held like a loaf of bread. And that will worry people in the NFL. Like I say, that lack of awareness of who's around him and where, and ultimately what cost them the game. Like I say, still will go well, still first round quarterback, but still this will take the shine off the season. Like I say, everything's still in their hands. They've got a garbage Wake Forest side. I guarantee Cam Ward goes and passes for 500 yards this weekend. And like I say, he'll go out there, he'll torch them. And then they've got a potential banana skin in Syracuse. Like I say, I think a lot of people will be watching that game, Kyle McCord v Cam Ward, two gamers as they call them. Like I say, that want to go out there and just like big splash plays. I think that could actually be a very high scoring game. If you look back at the Orange this year, that one should be fun. But yeah, it's going to just raise doubt to concerns. But yeah, I don't see any issues in making the title game. But it does scream to the weakness of the ACC and how it hurts them in their playoff bid. They need the automatic bid. Like I say, if they were to lose the title game, I don't know, would they make the playoffs? I don't
No,
know right now. All the SEC teams, like saying you could have a two-loss Florida. The Hurricanes don't get in, surely.
no. And I think the trouble is it's not in their hands anymore. So as it stands, they're third. So SMU are 5-0 in conference. Clemson are 6-1. Miami are 5-1. So obviously Clemson played a game more, but I guess that comes down. I don't know who's got the better strength of schedule in that. I just don't. They've beaten Louisville. Clemson play Pittsburgh this week. That could be big because Pittsburgh are the top. They've lost to Georgia Tech. Who did Clemson lose to in conference? They lost to. Did they lose to Miami? Have Miami beaten
They lost
Clemson
to
this year?
Louisville.
They lost to Louisville.
So they've got a common
Ooh,
opponent, and Louisville beat Clemson and Miami beat them. So yeah. And then I
that's
look at Pittsburgh's remaining game. Pittsburgh hard, the Citadel. Okay, you're going to win
hmm,
6-0. South Carolina against Clemson last day of the season.
it's
Clemson's
rivalry game,
season's going to
isn't
come
it?
down to that. That's going to come down to that game, isn't it?
I mean, for the playoffs, yes, obviously for conference because it's not a conference one, but it's big for their playoff push.
Yeah.
So they need to win that. They'll
Yeah.
be out
So
the playoffs.
Miami really needs Pittsburgh to beat Clemson this weekend on it.
Yeah, they do. Or they need SMU to slip up. And I don't know. That
I
just
know
doesn't look
which one's
possible at
more
this moment in
likely
time.
out of
Yeah.
those two. When I look at the remaining schedule,
Yeah. I mean, or if everyone, Louisville could sneak in. I don't know. The top of the ACC is a bit murky at this moment in time, but Miami, I don't think it's in their hands. So they're going to have to be very careful going forward. We had a big ranked matchup this weekend. We talked about SEC teams being two-loss teams, and the really big one this weekend between two teams who'd already lost two. Loser would be out of the playoffs. Alabama ranked 11 at LSU ranked number 14, and I mean, I forgive us for thinking we were going to get a really good game out of this one because both teams' seasons were on the line, and you thought both teams were going to go hell for leather to try and win this one, but ultimately at the end of the day only one team showed up in this, Ryan. Alabama went into LSU's house and, for want of a better word, absolutely cooked them with 310 rushing yards on the ground and six rushing touchdowns, four from quarterback Jalen Milrow, who had nearly a 200-yard day on the ground. He had 185 rushing yards, just 109 passing yards. They just ran the ball down LSU's throat. And LSU all season have not been able to defend dual threat quarterbacks. When they played Texas A&M a couple of weeks back, Marcel Reed cooked them. They play against Jalen Milrow. Jalen Milrow cooked them. LSU season is over now in regards to the playoffs. They're going to have to go try and get a berth in the Citrus Bowl or something like that. But about as uncompetitive a game as you'll get with such stakes here at this point. It was, no second half points whatsoever for LSU. It was literally, oh, sorry, they did with about 10 seconds to go. They decided they wanted to make a game, but just two field goals in the first half and then a touchdown as time's expiring. Alabama absolutely twonked them, and this was just not competitive. And now Brian Kelly is going to be in a bit of bother with his Tiger faithful.
Oh, I'd say a lot. I'd say that was one of the nails in his coffin. I think Brian Kelly's time at LSU, his days are certainly numbered. So, like I say, not overly competitive. Like I say, lost by 2 scores to A&M, blown out by Bama. Like I say, took overtime to beat Ole Miss.
Lost to Notre Dame.
Lost to Notre Dame. Lost to USC.
Yeah, that's the rivalry game.
Yeah, and then you look at the games they've got left. Florida, blah. Vanderbilt very comfortably could give LSU a world of trouble if they so choose. And then Oklahoma. I mean, LSU season has just fizzled out. Imagine telling the Tigers at the start of the year, guys, you're going to have 4+ losses and you ain't going to get close to a 12-team playoff. I think they'd fire Brian Kelly there and then. They wouldn't even go ahead with the season.
They're a 5-point favorite against Florida. 5
Florida,
against
that's like
Florida.
say, has got freshmen everywhere. And like say,
fourth
hates their
string
head coach.
quarterback. A fourth string quarterback. Guys
They've
everywhere.
got like 10 injuries in offense, half a wide receiver core, half an O-line. And I guarantee LSU will struggle. And all those people that thought Garrett Nussmeier was the second coming of Christ, he's really not, is he? Like what? He just loves to throw interceptions. Like,
So, yeah, this is his first season, right? Next year is going to be the big one because this is his first year as a starter. There's no excuse for him next year. Do you reckon they give him a second year, or
I mean,
are we gonna?
No, they're gonna have to bring someone in to challenge him.
I think you
Because
are.
there's no who's the backup.
I mean, I don't know. The backup there
AJ
is at the minute.
Swan, the old
Oh,
Vanderbilt
the
quarterback.
Vanderbilt quarterback.
I mean, that's not good depth, is it really?
He's got to be getting near the end of his college career as well. He
Yeah.
was at Vandy
They
for a
need
few
to, yeah, they need to
years.
bring some new life into this quarterback room next year.
I don't know what the commit's like. I assume they've got a high level commit coming in, but I don't know who the LSU one is this year, so I'll have a look at that. But I mean, for Bama, it's another week on, and it's just you don't know with these guys, do you? People started wondering about Milrow, and then you see this game. He just looks so poised, so calm, so collected. This was good Jalen Milrow, and good Jalen Milrow looks like a high level round one quarterback, but then you just get some days where he just looks completely lost. I don't know. He feels Anthony Richardson-esque. Is that fair to say? Although he's got a lot more experience, but it feels like it's really boom or bust with him.
Yeah. There's plenty of weeks where I look at him and think, like, you should be winning the Heisman. And then there's other weeks I look at him and think, you wouldn't look out of place in the Ivy League. Like, you just look sometimes lost. Or you look like, I think a lot of him is, I think he's a try hard. I think sometimes he just tries too hard. He holds on to the ball too long. He'll run 100 yards and to try extend a play. and he'll end up losing 10 yards or to gain 4 yards. Like he's kind of like so he feels like a one-man wrecking crew sometimes, and that can be great for him. It sometimes can be his downfall.
Yeah,
I do
absolutely.
think at the next level, someone absolutely falls in love with Jalen Milroe, and I absolutely he will get taken in the first round because of the physical tools, the traits, the legs, what he can do. Yeah, he's everything about him, like you say, just screams like we'll make brilliant players next year.
Yeah,
But then, like you
absolutely.
say, he will also make huge errors week in, week out, and you will get absolutely very frustrated with him.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking of good draft prospects, I mean, this Bama defense is full of them again. We talk, I know they've had a couple of losses this year, but you think, apart from that one really bad half against Georgia, it has been all right. And the standout, obviously, 2 sacks on the day, but Jihad Campbell, like, I mean, what a player he's going to be at the next level. We don't need a linebacker in Detroit, really, but I mean, you watch him play and just how good he is, and you're like, I could do with him on my team.
Yeah, Jihad Campbell, and I see a player, LT Overton. I see him linked to Detroit in mock drafts in
Yeah,
future years, like I
yeah,
say, as a pretty much very stout, dominant defensive tackle. Like I say, he's big, he's strong, heavy. Like I say, two guys, like I say, that should do very well when they do get their names called. But like I say, then just a plethora of defensive backs. Is it?
safeties. The
Yep.
safeties. So
Is
you've
it
got
Malachi
Malachi Moore, Bray
Malachi Moore?
Hubbard is in there. There's three of them. I can't remember. I think one of them's injured at the minute, but definitely Bray Hubbard and Malachi Moore are the two big ones out there. Bray Hubbard had a really good game in this one. He got targeted a couple of times, didn't give up a single thing. Malachi Moore, he seems to have, after his meltdown at, was it Vandy, where he was getting cooked at Vandy. He seems to have come back into it now. But this Bama defense is full of good prospects again, so we will have to keep an eye. But I know G. Head Campbell, he's probably going to go to the Senior Bowl, and everyone's going to go there and watch him. They've got a couple of good corners in there as well, but we've just invested a lot in, so we'll see. But it won't surprise me to see another Bama player come to
No, we do
Detroit
love Bama guys,
this
don't we?
year. We do, absolutely. So yeah, Bama ruin LSU season. I say for LSU, it's about trying to get to the Citrus Bowl at this point. Other ranked teams that lost. I don't want to do this, but here we go. Iowa State. 2 weeks ago, the season was looking so good, and they were looking so good, and the Bectical was on track to have an absolutely great season. And then Texas Tech come to town and ruin it with that stupidly late touchdown last week. And it feels like it's knocked the wind out of their sails a little bit. Now, Rocco was great in this game. He threw for nearly 400 yards and 3 touchdowns, but they just didn't run the football and give him any sort of backup.
Fell behind too quickly, didn't they? They were
Devin
31-10 down, I think, at some point.
Yeah, they got the first touchdown in the game, but then after that it was tough going. You say they
The
were
Devin Neal show.
31-10 down at oh no, they got it was 31-13 at the half, but first touchdown is for Kansas in the second. They're 38-13 down and they try and fight back, but they get 3 touchdowns in the second half. Beck did his best in this. I still think he's a hell of a good quarterback, and I still think he's a great player. And put something else around him. Jalen Noel had 167 yards, 2 touchdowns for them, but it just feels like the party's ending a bit there now. It's just the wind's been knocked out the sails right, 2 in a row. You're struggling now. You're part of a clutch of 4-2 teams. There's 4-2 teams behind Colorado at 5-1 and BYU at 6-0. So at worst, Colorado need to lose to get these teams in the equation. It's not in your hands now. You've
Yeah.
just got
And
to
you look
go
at the
out
end of the
there and play.
season, they've got an awful last 3 games. Like I say, they've got 3 really difficult ties
Mm. So,
against 3 teams, like you say, that one, like I say, Cincinnati, very good this year. Their record doesn't do them justice. They've been competitive against all the best teams. A Utah defense and then a Kansas State Wildcats offense, where Kansas State in the last gate season will have a lot to play for. So yeah, I don't want to say it, but I genuinely think Iowa State's out. I think, yeah,
yeah, it's tough. You couldn't lose this one. And like for Kansas, you're like, they must be wondering what could have been because they came into this year full of
Yeah, they don't.
expectation
Yeah, from
and
what I've seen and what I've watched a few of their games. They don't feel like a 3-6 team.
no. They're what is called they're like the Georgia Tech of the Big 12 this year, right? They're the nuisance. They're the team you
Like
don't
Evan
want to
Neal,
play.
he's a very good running back, and he's had actually a really good year.
Yeah,
It's the quarterback. I say it's Jalen Daniels, and it? He's too hot, too cold.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So it's just again what might have been really for them. And speaking about teams whose season has come off the rails, it's not just Iowa State, unfortunately. You go back to the ACC here, Pittsburgh. After that big showdown against SMU last week, the season was full of promise for them. They got absolutely twonked. And like Iowa State, the gas just feels like it's come out of the balloon a little bit here. They lost at home to Virginia, and Virginia have had a meh season to this point. Colin Dreher's been a bit up and down, but Pitt got up early in this. Virginia scored first, but Pitt were up 13-7 at the half, and you're thinking, okay, yeah, that's decent. We'll get in there for it. But Virginia just dominated the third quarter. They had two touchdowns unanswered to put themselves 21-13 up. Pitt did get a score back. Eli Holstein went out the game. Nate Yarnell came in. He made a difference to make it a 2-point game. The conversion failed. That was a bit odd. They went for it with 10 and a half minutes to go, but yo, behold. And then they just weren't able to capitalize. Virginia got a field goal with 2 minutes to go. And it was just kind of a case of he threw an interception right at the end as well. Virginia were able to just sort of kneel this one out. It's a shame, right? This Pitt team. I don't think we expected them to compete at the start of the year, but they have far exceeded expectations, I think. But it just seems a bit disappointing, these teams. They lose one and then it kind of just feels like that belief goes and their backbone's broken. They are done up around their trenches and being able to, the trench warfare aspect. Virginia, 8 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, got 2 interceptions as well. I mean, in fairness, the Pitt D line got 6 sacks in this one, got 8 tackles for loss. It's still there, but the Pitt O line, it's just kind of crumpled that offense up a bit. The defense is still good, but the offense is just spluttering, and Eli's dropped off.
Yeah, like you say, momentum's a real thing, and sometimes when you lose it, it's too hard to get back. It just feels like it's an unobtainable goal. No matter what you do, it just feels like everything is just going against you. And like you say, a team that I say started really healthy and then like injuries pile up. Like I say, I've read Eli Holstein, Pat Narduzzi's non-committal to him playing this weekend because of the head injury. So it gets worse. Like you say, you want to finish the end of the season strongly now. It's going to be Nate Yarnell this weekend. Like you say, huge game coming up. Like you say, bragging rights in the ACC. You can be the party pooper. You want to go out there and give your best. Like you say, you're missing, like you say, your spiritual leader. So yeah, it just feels like they're aiming for a good ball game. What could have been now is like, some of these guys won't be asked about the ball game they make because it'll probably be pretty average.
Yeah, it'll not be what it could have been, absolutely for sure. So yeah, that's bad for Pittsburgh. I mean, still an outside chance, but without Eli, that is going to be very
Yeah. Beating
difficult
Clemson without
indeed. But
Eli, that
yeah,
is going to be so mass. Clemson
yeah.
have been on a tear
But
recently.
if they can keep Eli for next year, they've given themselves a platform for next
Yeah.
year. They've shown they
Yeah,
can
I'd be very
compete.
shocked if he decided to enter the portal after a year. I'd be
Yeah.
surprised if he.
I would hope he stays. So let's see how he does. But they've got themselves a stable future, hopefully. The last of the 7 teams to lose, unfortunately, the Vandy Pimps lost, which was such a shame. They came up against good South Carolina for a change. They lost 28-7 at home, and it's been a good year for Vandy. They're a 5-win team. They're trying to get to bowl eligibility. You've had some big wins in there. You are showing progress on the field. But it did kind of feel like after last week that it was just gonna, things were coming to a head Good South Carolina turned up. Lenoris Sellers, Raheem Sanders. Hey, all of a sudden, they look like one of the best pairings in the SEC. Rocket has really rediscovered his best form. Sellers is playing well. Obviously, Rocket's going to go to the draft. I think he's got to be
He
at
should
draft.
do.
He's got to be because he was lead back at Arkansas for years, and now it's his second year at South Carolina. So it's a shame for the Vandy Pimps, right? But they're still going to look at this as a good season. They've shown that they're not to be messed with anymore, but this still shows that they've got a bit of a distance to go. They've come far, but there's still far to go.
Yeah, they've bridged the gap. We're going to find out in the last 2 weeks just how far or close they are. 21 LSU, 6 Tennessee. And like I say, do you expect them to lose both? Probably. But can they be competitive?
Mm.
Everything, if you don't be competitive in these two games, it feels like every week that's come before it has been for nothing. These are the games, like I say, that you look forward to. Like I say,
Yeah,
you've got a chance to ruin Tennessee's year,
yeah,
potentially. If Tennessee, let's say they lose this week, and then like say when they come to Vanderbilt, let's say they're ranked, I don't know, 13, 12, 13, and they're trying to make the outside playoffs. Vanderbilt, you could blow all that up and you'll be carried off the pitch like heroes or storm the field. That's kind of like you've got to imagine that. That's what you're playing for. Being a party pooper sometimes is the best thing in the world. And that's all they've got left. They've made the bowl game, 6-4. Can you now don't let the season fizzle out. Don't limp into the bowl game with no momentum because
yeah,
then you're at the mercy of the gods. You need to
yeah.
go in with a little bit of confidence behind you. And yeah, like I say, all the legal battle, like I say, Diego Pavia right now looks like he's going to lose. It looks like he's gone, whether he wants to or not. He's not getting another year as it stands. So he needs to go out on a high and, well, draft stock now. He's going to have to declare.
I still think I still think that he has intrigue for the draft. He's like where Rice Plumley was last year. He's intriguing in the right
Yeah, he
system.
needs to go. Yeah, he needs his games to go out and like say put on a show against some big
Yeah.
competition.
And LSU, like we're just saying about LSU, they can't contain dual threat quarterbacks. They've been rinsed, like all their losses, it's noticeable. It's dual threat quarterbacks, which they just struggle with so badly. He is one of the best dual threat quarterbacks there is. And this Vandy team doesn't fear nobody. So, I can see them putting up a few points in this. I
Yeah,
mean,
and their secondary as
28-7,
well. Like I
yeah.
say, I think they can take the ball away from Garrett Nussmeier.
Yeah. I mean, 28-7 sounds big. This was a one-score game till near the end of the third quarter. They did keep this close for a long time. They just sort of pulled away towards the end, but it wasn't 28-7 sounds dominating. It wasn't. So there is still fight
Oh,
in there for them. So,
oh, I didn't notice that while we were on air. Big
oh,
news coming out of BC.
About Castellanos walking away from the team.
Yeah, but he's in a portal.
Oh, has he?
Yeah, plans to enter
Oh,
the portal, so he's walked away. But yeah, he's not coming back. He's told them he's going to hit the portal. It opens in December.
I know he
That
he
is a
let
huge loss.
he left the team for a few days, but they benched him, didn't they, at the end of
Yeah.
the
So he
Syracuse
benched him and he's
game?
like, I'll take a few days. And Bill O'Brien said, yeah. But apparently he plans to enter the poll. Don't know
What's
what to
Bill
make of that.
O'Brien done to him? Like
I
last
don't
year,
know.
he threw for 2,000 yards and he rushed for over 1,000. He looked so good. He was what? He was a freshman last year, right?
Yeah.
So what has he
He's
done
only a
to him in his
sophomore now, yeah.
sophomore year? Bill O'Brien's done something to him there. He's not just become a bad quarterback overnight.
No. I
I
think I'll be
think.
interested to see where he goes. I think that he should have a good amount of interest.
Ooh. Ooh, where could you
Who wants a
go?
smaller dual threat quarterback?
Let's fantasy book him. Where would you send him? Best system for
Uh,
someone like Castellanos. You want a true dual threat quarterback who can. You would say
Miami,
he's maybe.
the
Ooh,
Hurricanes,
ooh,
replace Cam Ward.
ooh. Color me intrigued. You could. Where would I fantasy book him? Oh, this is intriguing. This is. I'd not send him to a Big Ten team. He's not in the. Or would I? Is he in a Big Ten mold? I don't think he's in the Big Ten mold. Maybe he's in the Big 12 mold.
Louisville.
Ooh,
Tyler Shook is out of, like say he's had 7 years.
that's a good fantasy book in Louisville for him.
Yeah, because
I could get
they've had
behind that.
Shook, Lamar, they had Plummer, all gone pro.
Mm, we
Got a
could.
decent program.
I mean, who else is going to Colorado will need a new quarterback. Oh, Oregon will need a new quarterback. I don't know if he's a top tier. He'll get a mid team. Well, he'll not get a top tier assignment. Ooh, yeah, that's intriguing. But I think it's right for him. They've done something wrong to him this year. I don't think it's Castellanos' fault. He was good last year, and he started this year good. So we will see. But yeah, news there. BC have lost Michigan. No, Brent. No. No. You are not going to ruin him at Michigan. Absolutely not. Not having that. Brent goes, is Vandy similar to Old Dominion last year? Great underdog story. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fair to say. Hell, it'd be like New Mexico State. I reckon they're like New Mexico State last year. Technically, because they are New Mexico State from last year. They got Jerry Killer's OC. They got Diego Pavia, Eli Stowers. They've basically just transferred New Mexico State to Vandy. So I'd probably put it on lines with that. Old Dominion are not out of the Sun Belt East title race yet either. They can still get there. So Old Dominion might be another feel-good story this year. But yeah, not Michigan, Brent. You can't have them. Send him to Army. I'd rather send him to Army than Michigan. Because at least Army would honor his run game ability there, and they'd look after him. Um, well, the other upset this week, Air Force won their first game of the year, or the first game in the Mountain West. They beat Fresno State, who were favored heavily in this 36 to 28. So good on Air Force getting their first win in the Mountain West this year. It's going to be a terrible year for them, but hopefully they got a very young team there. So a couple of wins. Maybe we'll see the Falcons fly again next year. Moving on to the Survivor Suite part of this. How nervous were you this week, Rye, watching the Indiana Hoosiers? We talked about how they've not been in this position a lot of times. They're an unbeaten team. Beat Michigan State handily last week, but you're playing Michigan this week, and yeah, Michigan are bad. But Michigan are defending national champions, and Michigan can play on a big stage. They've got a lot of players who've played on a big stage. And for Indiana, this was the ultimate banana skin possible to ruin their season. And early on, they looked so good in this game. They were 17-3 up at the half, and they didn't look phased at all. Michigan took the lead, but then two touchdowns from Indiana, Curtis Rourke to Omar Cooper Jr. to Elijah Sarrett. Those two guys continue to be great. Field goal just before the half puts them 17-3 up, and you're thinking, this is great. But then they come out in the second half and they look nervous. And when I say they look nervous, they look nervous. The drives just didn't get going. They were stalling out. They were making mistakes they don't normally do. Savada hit a couple of field goals. One of them was from nearly 60 yards. He's going to be a good draft prospect when he goes in the Arkansas State transfer. One of Michigan's better offensive players this year. And then with 10 minutes to go, Michigan got the touchdown. Kalel Mullings, with his umpteenth touchdown this season. They tried a two-pointer to level it up and they failed. Indiana did manage to, find some backbone for that. And then it got really nervy. It was here, there, everywhere. And Indiana were able to get a touchdown. They got a takeaway and then they got a touchdown on the back of it. And they were just able to sneak this one out, but it was not pretty. Neither team broke 250 offensive yards. Neither team rushed for more than 70 yards. It was, from Michigan, clunky, disjointed, lots of field goals, no good offensive play. And Indiana, they had the half of nerves there, but like we say, right, once again, they showed the backbone to get over the line, which is the biggest thing for them, but it was close.
Yeah, it was very, it was tense. It was for large parts, it was a defensive tussle. Like you say, Rourke did enough, but there just wasn't the room. The receivers were not getting the separation to capitalize. There were very few big explosive plays. A lot of it was managing the clock. third down conversions, just trying to, like say, get just beyond the sticks, first downs, relying on kickers, like say, special teams came into this factor. To fair to Michigan's credit, they made life really difficult for the Hoosiers all day. Like I say, they were there, they were irritating, they were in their face. Their defense was stingy. Their run game, their offense, like I say, not firing on cylinders, but then again, it hasn't been all year, so that's nothing new. They knew they weren't going to get into a shootout and win, so they had to make this ugly and keep it close, and they did do that. This was one of them games where if they had Will Johnson, I think they win. I think he would have been the deciding factor. But at this point for Will Johnson, why would what's the point in coming back? There is no real benefit to him, is there, playing his last two games? He's thinking about the draft. If I'm him, I'm thinking about the draft. Like I say, he can't do up for Michigan now. It's too late. The season's over.
He's the best corner in the draft.
Yeah,
He's better than Travis Hunter.
yeah. Like I say, he can go anywhere he wants.
Yeah.
There's just no reason for him to return and risk injury in his last two games. So I'd be very surprised. I think he'd be a fool if he came back for these last two games. Like I say,
Yeah.
Michigan now just floundering.
You're
Like I
lucky
say,
to,
they're trying to get to a bowl game.
you'd be lucky to make the Mayo Bowl at this rate.
When was the last time Michigan? Let's have a look. When was the last time Michigan didn't make a bowl game? It's got to be a
I
long
reckon
time.
you'd have to go back to the Rich Rodriguez era for that. Brent will know that, but I reckon you'd have to go back to Rich Rod to find that. It's not very often. I think
Oh
Rich
wait,
Rod's.
no. Oh wait, no. COVID year that don't count. 2020.
Oh yeah, we're not counting
Wonder
20.
why they went 2-4.
Yeah, no, we're not counting that year. I
So
would
you
say
look at
it's
who
got
they've
to
got
be.
left.
It's about 2008, 2009,
Yeah,
something
I
like
mean, if
that.
they
Rich
don't
Rod.
win this weekend,
Well, they're a 5-win team, aren't they?
yeah, 5-5. So if they don't win this weekend and they've got the Buckeyes, they're not making the playoff. I mean, not making a bowl game, are they? So
Who've they
this
got this
weekend feels like their
weekend?
last chance.
Who've they got?
Northwestern,
Oh,
and that's not
God.
easy.
That's going to be ugly. That is going to be ugly. And again, we talk about this every week with Indiana. The defensive line, right, 30 quarterback pressures in this game, six of them from one of their nose tackles, CJ West, another four from James Carpenter, the other nose tackle who they bought from James Madison. Mikhail Kamara, I cannot speak highly enough about this guy. 8 pressures, 2 quarterback hits on the day. The superstar he bought from James Madison with him is absolutely killing it here. I mean, this was just a game where, again, this Michigan O-line, there's still remnants of that championship winning team in here. They brought in the left guard from Northwestern, who was really good and really experienced. But Signetti's bought this D-line with him from James Madison. He's all about D-line football, one of the highest sack masters in the country last year. This seems to be his modus. He's just installed it in a year. It's just so impressive, right?
Yeah, the ability to, I suppose, cherry pick players that, like I say, he genuinely thinks can make the step up, and he could have brought them in, and a lot of them could have got buried on the roster. Like I say, they'd have made no impact, struggle with playing time, and that would have been a bad reflection on him and his choice. Like he would have gone with his head and not his heart. But the ones he has picked and the ones that did come with him, they've made an immediate impact. Like I say, that they're part of the reason this team is where he is. And if I'm sure we'll talk about him later, if he does win a certain award this year, he will have to attrition it to the guys that he's brought with him that we with from day one have stepped in as well. So that it would be a collective award.
Yeah. I'm so excited about some of it. I want some of them on the Lions. I want Mikhail Kamara on the Lions. I think he's an absolute menace. The guy's young and he's not even begun to tap his potential yet. And he's just been incredibly good. Like my eyes are laser focused on him now at the edge position going in the draft. I don't know if he declares this year. If it's not, it'll be next year, but you can never have too many edge players. In terms of other near upsets, I mean, we talk about the group of five spot, right? The Boise State, they did not have it easy this week against Nevada, the Wolfpack, 28-21. Ashton Gianti carries on his one-man crusade to get the Heisman, another 210 yards and 3 touchdowns for him. Although he did get stripped in this one, he did lose the ball. The ball security was a bit iffy. And this Nevada team, right, they're scrappy. They went down 14-0 early, and you're thinking, well, that's it. They're just going to run all over them now. But they recovered before the half. This was 14 all at the half. Boise did get a couple of touchdowns then to re-extend the lead, but they kept fighting till the end. They got a touchdown with 2 minutes to go, and they had a chance to go and take this to overtime. They had a fumble on the 1 yard line. I think it was Sean Dollars when the score was closer. They were at the 1 yard line. He fumbled it into the end zone, and Boise got it back. This Nevada team is 3-8. They've lost 5 games by less than a score. We talked about them earlier in the year. They went 2-0. They're not the team this year, but that Nevada team is low key having a really good year in terms of rebuilding itself back into a force again. And they gave Boise everything they had here, and Boise were lucky to get out of this one with the win.
Yeah, like say Nevada, winless in conference, lost 4, 3-8. But if you look at, like say, the quality of the losses, it's not like they're getting destroyed. Like
No,
say, they had, like say, they've dropped games to Fresno State. They've beat Oregon State. Like say, they were within a score of the Spartans. Like say, they fell shortly to Georgia Southern. They just missed it. Like I said, they took Troy down, like say, at the start of September. So they're there or thereabouts in a lot of their games. It's very rarely a side, like say, is pulling away from them and they're not able to get back. So it's it's promising for next year. It shows that they've got some resilience to them. There's a spine and a core to the team. And yeah, Boise State, very lucky, glad to get out of that one still alive.
yeah, absolutely, indeed. Oh, Brent, I love you. He goes, I met some random guy in Ho Chi Minh City in 2010, and we spent an hour bitching about Rich Rodriguez. Well, a lot of Michigan fans did back in the day, but he's rebounded nicely at Jacksonville State. So who knows? We might see him in a power job again sooner rather than later. In terms of the other upsets as well, speaking of Jacksonville State, actually, this is where I'm going next. They took overtime to beat Louisiana Tech. They were favored massively for that one. So they ended up 44-37, but Jacksonville State continue to absolutely pile down on points. They're second in the CUSA. The fate's in their own hand in terms of going to the title game. So last year they couldn't because of the transition. This year they can. So maybe we get there. And then the other near shock. We talk about teams who are setting a nice future foundation for themselves, right? You go back to the Mountain West and we were saying that Hawaii were having a difficult season, and they have for the most part. They've struggled. But they won 2 games in a row against Nevada and they beat Fresno State. They came up against UNLV this week, which is an entirely different kettle of fish, and they took them right down to the wire. UNLV only won 29-27, and at the end of the day, it came down to a safety, which UNLV got in the first quarter to sort of settle this one down. But Braden Shager again, 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. Pinoque, receiver, had 2 touchdowns for them. You've still got Bufele Ashlock there. Dekel Crowder's had a reception for about 80 yards. This Hawaii team's showing life again. Next year they're going to have to do something about it and show the consistency, but they're not bottom feeders anymore. They are showing life and showing they can come up with the best. Fresno State and UNLV were 2 of the teams expected to be in the hunt for the Mountain West this year, and they've beaten one and nearly beaten another. So Timmy Chang, he's getting them there, but they need to move a little faster next year.
Yeah. I think next year, yeah, they need to start the season with a little more, bit more oomph behind them. Like I say, get Braden Shager. It just feels like they've got him up and running too late this year to really make an impact. Like I say, he's very capable. Like I say, good arm. Like I say, can rack up yardage, can really chew through some sides. But I say the whole team in general, it felt sluggish. Like I say, you look at the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. Like I said, they've really kind of come into their own, but it's just a bit too little, too late right now. Like I say, but yeah, they're kind of in that middle ground of treading water. Like I say, at 2 and 3. Like I say, so they're closer than they are further away. But to get with the big boys, there's still a lot of work to do. But like I say, it's a promising, like I say, just been able to make life really difficult for the Red Bulls. That shows that, yeah, they don't get kind of stage fright against the bigger sides.
No, absolutely not. Just very quickly, Marmarker just says off topic, but I appreciate you guys respecting JUCOs. Just learned Zadarius Smith came from a junior college. Yeah, like JUCO players can be good. You've sometimes you have to go down to find yourself and come back up. And when we do our previews for the conferences all year long, like you're forever hearing about JUCO players making the jump up and getting back to where they want to be. So yeah, absolutely. Zedarius is a good example of that. So yeah, we always respect JUCO here. JUCO, HBCU, doesn't matter where you come from. If you're good, we will give you the time of day. And then we've been going a while, so I'll go through the pick watch results now. A few in there, and it was not a good week for me and you. So let's just get through this. App State got absolutely twonked by Coastal Carolina, 38 to 24. App State have been one of the biggest disappointments this season, all told. They should have been in the Sun Belt race this year. And their coach, he getting fired. I don't know what they say. He should not be there this time next year because all the other heavyweights in the Sun Belt changed their coaches this year. They did not, and they bought a lot of their team and a lot of their star playmakers back, and they've been rubbish. So Coastal Cal with a big win there. Colorado, Ryan, absolutely walloped Texas Tech 41 to 27. How legit are the Buffs this year? Because as much as I've hated Dion and the circus round there, I have
Very
to give
legit right
respect
now.
to this team. That D line, my God, it's got some playmakers on it, and it is wrecking it up like Indiana's is.
Yep. Very strong contender to win the Big 12 right now.
Second place.
Yep. I look at them and I think, yep. I look at the remaining games and I think, yep, probably making a title game. And like I say, if they played BYU tomorrow, I think they could have too much offense for BYU.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't think that's the one I want to see.
I don't think that'd be a good matchup for the Cougs going up against, like say, Shepherd.
I'd want to see an elite defense come up against Colorado. And I'm not sure who the elite defense is in the Kansas State, Arizona State, Iowa State. I guess Iowa State would be the elite defense, but I don't think they've got the offense to hang with them. It's odd trying to find the right matchup here, but the Buffs look so good. They had two guys who were in the top pressure leaders of the week. Like the nose tackle they've got is just, oh my God, he's absolutely amazing. They're starting freshmen all over the place who are, Dion is doing a good job. Cannot lie about that there. Boston College beat Syracuse. We both went in on Syracuse on that, damn them. UTEP beat Kennesaw State in double overtime, which cost Brian Bohannon his job 43 to 58. And I don't often get mad with Alex Golesh on this podcast, but Navy absolutely wiped the floor with USF 28 to 7 after two straight losses in a row to keep their American dreams alive. It's a week for us to forget, eh, Rye?
Yep. I've I've slowly lost. I started really well. I've lost ground every week now.
So have I. I've not been doing well lately at all. Were there any other games you want to quickly mention from week 11 before we move on? Because we've still got a bit to do.
Nope. Just shout out to the Mercer Bears, the first playoff team in Division One football. They won their game. They got the first automatic FCS playoff bid. They at worst will share the SOCOM. They won and East Tennessee State beat Western Carolina, so they got their first bid. They're 9-0, 10-0 now, and they're in the playoffs. So the playoff automatic bids for the FCS in the next week or two will all get locked up, and then their committee will pick their teams. So their playoffs will be their playoffs will be decided pretty quickly.
Exactly. And while we're shouting out Bears teams, also give a big shout out to our good friend Gerald Huggins and his Morgan State Bears. They got the HBCU team of the week this week. They actually won two in a row. They beat Norfolk State last week. They beat Delaware State this week. They are 5-5 on the year, which I believe is better than they were doing before. So well done to Gerald. Hopefully that project is going well there. They look a good team at this moment in time. Right, let's move it on. And we're going to talk about, before we do our pick watch for next week, Coach of the Year candidates. So we've got a few weeks left of the season just yet, but we wanted to sort of have a look at head coaching candidates who potentially might be up for the award this year. Now, I think we think along similar lines. Like a lot of people, they just pick like your Georgias, your Alabamas, your Ohio State guys, the guys who've got all the 5 stars and just win games against scrub oppositions and call them head coach of the year. Here we have different criteria. Yeah, you can be in a good team, that's fine. You get up for that. But if you've taken over a historically bad franchise, a team who's down, who historically has just not done good, and you do a good job there, you don't necessarily have to win it all. This still constitutes a head coach of the year argument, and it's about the job you do overall, whether it be your recruiting, how you're doing on the field, what you've done for the face of your team, basically. So for me, there's lots of different criteria here. Ryan's got about 5 guys on this. I've got 9 altogether, but I've got some who are in it now. I've got some who could potentially be in it if the season goes like how it could potentially do for them. They've put their guys in there. So I don't know. Shall we do guys on the periphery first and then do the Have you got any periphery guys who you might want to put in there rather than strong contenders right now?
Uh, I've got 3 main guys. I've got one guy strongly considered, one guy should be considered, one guy I think will get more love from the people than he will the voters.
Right. So I'll do mine on the periphery quickly first because
One of
then I'm
them is
down
very
to 4
biased, but
ones.
I can still make a strong case for him.
Oh, have you actually? I've got him as well. Oh, are we talking Sun Devils?
Yeah,
All right. Okay. Kenny Dillingham. Okay, I think this is a legitimate case. Put the case forward. Why should he be head coach of the year? Potentially.
yeah. Like I say, Kenny Dillingham, 34, one of the youngest FBS head coaches in history. He is Sun Devil graduate alumni. Took over a team that, like I say, Herm Edwards, like I say, Ray Lewis drove into the ground 3-9, 3-9. He's got them. Like I say, media poll consensus would come bottom in their first year. Like I say, he's currently got them third, 7-2, 4-2. 3 games, 2 of them against 2 of the big boys. They could still do it. They could still make, like I say, a lot has got to win. They need 2 major upsets. But like I say, he has got them right now as a very strong chance to finish in the top 25 of the AP poll if he gets one of the big upsets. So he's got them. They're a top 35 offense in points per week. They're top 13 at rushes per game. They're 22nd in rush yards per game. They're joint 30th in yards per pass. And they're top joint 7th in the country in giveaways per game at just 0.7. Like I say, they've got 2 huge games to control himself. But this guy has taken a team that became a bit of a laughing stock. You had the stuff off the field. You had the NCAA. You had all the players leaving the portal a couple of years ago. He's rebuilt a team with a transfer redshirt freshman quarterback that a lot of people didn't know. He's put the world of faith in him. Like I say, he's got a graduate, like I say, running back to come lead his offense. And he's turned them around to be one of the biggest surprises of the year. Like I say, a lot of teams have done really well in the new conferences, but they were expected to. No one thought Sun Devils would do well because even the media didn't think they'd do well. Like I say, they've got a chance to finish the season really well and super likable guy. Like I said, he bleeds crimson. And but like I say, if you cut him up and like I say, he loves Sun Devils. Like I say, it's his family, it's his team. But the sky's the limit for him. Like I say, just 34. Like I say, I think he's like the second or third youngest coach in the country right now. Like, a lot of teams just going to be eyeing him up in recent years. Keeping hold of him will be hard, even though the love he's got for ASU. The big jobs will come in a couple of years if he carries on. But yeah, he's turned them round. Like I say, the trajectory right now, like I say, is really well. And he's got the chance, like I say, cause some major upsets in the last 3 weeks. And if he does cause them, like I say, and he does get to 9, 10 wins, firmly should be in the conversation for Coach of the Year.
I love it that you've got him in there because I thought along the similar lines to you. So when taking head coach of the year into consideration, you do have to consider the job they took over. Like it's not just winning 10 games with a load of 5-star recruits. Kenny Dillingham, as you say, took over. Some might say a toxic culture, which had
Yeah.
arrived
They were
there.
rotten off the
And
field and on the field.
they had a defense that was all right, an offense that was known just for running the ball and like being one-dimensional in how he did it. And he's had to reset it from scratch. And over 2 years, the last 2 years in the pack, he's set himself a foundation. And then this year, as you mentioned, expected to finish rank bottom. And just week in, week out, they have surpassed expectations. And against some good teams, they were underdogs against Texas State, who are a group of five team at the start of this year. That's how little people thought of them, and they were able to hang. And he's created an offense which is not one-dimensional anymore. No Scatterboo this weekend. And yet they still go out and win against a dangerous UCF team who did have their lead running back in there. It shows he's got a quarterback who can win games on his own. He's got running back depth that can win. His defense is good enough. And as you mentioned, and this is why he's in here, if he can get them to a title game, he's got to beat Kansas State. He's got to beat BYU, but essentially it's in their own hands. If he gets them there on this schedule, he absolutely should be under there, given the job he was given, the age he's at, all those extenuating circumstances. Kenny Dillingham should be in for Coach of the Year. Some of the other guys I've got on the periphery here. So, in similar testament to this, I've got Casey Keeler on here as well because this Sam Houston team has a legitimate shot at winning the CUSA this year. It's 7-2 after its bad start last year, and the turnaround, I mean, the transition period for them has been very quick. I love what this team is about. I think they've been really good this year on both sides of the ball, and they're a legitimate threat in there. And if they can go win the CUSA, he should absolutely get consideration. It's only their second year up here. He's had a lot of problems to deal with on that team, and this team has shown faith in him, and he's been able to do it. He's a really good coach, and I think that he should be in consideration for it if he gets the CUSA there. Others on the periphery, I've got Jeff Monken in there as well. You cannot deny the job he's done at Army. In this day and age, the triple option teams have had to adapt to the new world that they live in. This is their first year in the American in the conference. First year they're playing a lot of these teams. They're not familiar with all their opposition they're playing against and the way they've just dominated. Like their quarterback's the third leading rusher in the country now, and he's missed a game. They are dominant on defense. They are dominant on offense. They've just got they've just been pile driving everybody. And if they carry on, they win the American and maybe even sneak into the playoffs. It's hard. I just don't see a world in which it happens with a two-loss Notre Dame, and it sucks. They shouldn't miss out, but I think Jeff Monken's got to be in there for a head coach of the year shout as well, because it's just hard to win with a service team now. It's very difficult to win a championship with a service team, and that should not be underestimated. And then the other two I've got Jim Mora, again, I had him up 2 years ago. UConn's 7-3 this year. UConn's UConn was a laughing stock before he got there. This is going to be the second year in three he's got them to bowl eligibility. They're a 7-3 team this year. They're damn good. They've got an offensive lineman already coming to the Senior Bowl, the right tackle, the left tackle, who I'm in love with. He'll go to the Senior Bowl as well, most likely. He's sending talent to the league every single year on a team where it's just really difficult to win. So I think that he is on the outside as well. If he can go unbeaten for the rest of the year, he should be in there. And then I've got Dion as well. I think Dion needs a shout if he wins the Big 12 because he's turned around. Say what you like about him. He's brash. He's big, there's a lot of stuff in there that grates people the wrong way, but he says what he says. He walks the walk and he talks the talk. And in 1 year, the progress of that team has been huge. You win a Big 12 with him. I think you have to really put him in there, but it depends on if they win it. So they're all my fringe guys. I'm down to me really serious ones now, but I've been talking for a bit. So who's your maybe middle guy?
My middle guy is is Brian Newbury, Navy midshipman. So, like I say, he's at the Navy. He was the defensive coordinator and the safeties coach between 2019 and 2022. Last year they went 5-7, 4-4. He came in for a period of that. But like I say, right now, 7-2, 5-1 in conference. He's currently got their first 1,000-yard passing quarterback since 2019. So you're talking about 5 years since they've been able to muster that, like I say, a rushing offense and a passing offense. Like I say, their current brand of football right now is more pro style than it has been for a number of years, where they're trying to go away from pound, pound, pound. Like I say, they're trying to get more expansive receiver player. He's trying to get them to be more spreading out of defense and play a more complementary style of football. And this year we've seen that working. Like I say, so I've got them at joint 20th in points per game, uh, up there, joint 7 points per play. Like I say, they're number 10 or ranked joint 10th in the country on fourth down conversions. He has got them right now. Say they're elite when it comes to sustaining drives, moving down the field and converting and keep them alive, not settling for field goals and not having to punt. So he's got a unit right now. It's top 40 as well in five major groups of offensive and defensive penalty yardage. Some of the most disciplined players I've seen them in years. Like I say, he's got these guys drilled down and he's breaking records. You got to look at them. So first simultaneous time Army and Navy have been ranked since 1960. Both Army and Navy were unbeaten through 6 weeks for the first time since 1945, so just after World War II. That's the last time they're both unbeaten. And this year, like I say, week 8, they opened the poll, AP poll at 25, and a week later climbed a place to 24 before dropping out in week 10. So what he's doing with them right now, the midshipman, he's still got them in a great place. Like I said, they've still got some good games left on the schedule. Like I said, they're not out of it. It won't be easy, but they're right firmly in the mix to be a contender in their own conference hall 50 years to come. And if he's able to, like I say, replace the players but keep the system, keep the complementary football, he will be the man to lead them forward for years to come. And he's done a great job with them. In Army's breakout year as well, Navy, for many weeks where they were on their coattails. Obviously, they've lost back-to-back games now, like I say, but I still think they'll finish season stronger. This still has to be a season for the Navy to kind of remember long for many years to come. And he has been the man that I say take over the helm. Because the Navy coach, Ken, before that, how many years was he there?
Matolo, he was there
You
about
Matola.
15,
10,
15
15 years.
years.
So
Yeah.
this was weird for them to put a new guy in charge, but like you say, picked up, like I say, no slack, no drop off or anything. And right now he's got them playing some of their best offensive football for a while. So I think he should be considered.
I do as well. Like the top of the American right now, Army are 7-0, Tulane are 6-0, Navy 5-1. Who do Navy play this week? Tulane. You win Tulane,
Big
you
test, yeah.
get the tiebreaker.
You beat Tulane, you're going to get that ranking back because they're
Yeah,
25.
you get the tiebreaker on them, and then we are literally one Army win away from an Army Navy American Championship game. Because Tulane can only get to 7 wins then, and Tulane won't have the record over Army to overhaul them. So this is a massive game this weekend. Navy beat Tulane. I think I'm with you. I think Newbury should be right in that conversation there. So it's really tough at the top, but at least one service team is getting there now. Army can't be overtaken by two teams. So, we're going to see one of these guys go for it. Guys I've got up here. So there's four. So I've got, obviously I'm putting Kurt Signetti in here. What he's done at Indiana is incredible in 1 year. Like Indiana, off their disastrous reign beforehand, they've not been relevant for a long time now. And the Big Ten, you think this year the conferences are gone, it's going to be tough. And yes, give and take it, they've not had the hardest schedule in there. They've not played Ohio State yet. They've not played Penn State. They're not played Oregon, but they played Michigan. They've beaten them. To be 10-0 now, sorry. It's the first time in the team's history. They have never been 10-0 in their lives, ever. This is the first time Indiana football has ever been in this equation. And now they're going to their bye. They have a massive game in 2 weeks. If Kurt Signetti can take down Ryan Day and Ohio State and get them in the championship game for the first time, you know what?
He
I
might
probably
lock the award up. He
am
might lock
I
it up there and then.
have Indiana ever? I probably would have to go back in time beyond my college knowledge at this point, but I can't think of them getting there recently. I don't think because they were a MAC team long ago, weren't they? I don't know if they've ever got there. But if he beats them, I mean, he should be up there anyhow. Again, for a program, you've taken over a historically not great program. and you've just taken them 10-0 in your first year. You have done it with a group of five quarterback transfer. You've done it with a whole bunch of transfers on both sides of the ball from your group of five school you just come through. This is not big recruits he's using. He's using lower school guys. This is all grit and determination, a la Dan Campbell. No one can underestimate this team because they're going to work harder than you. So I think Signetti should be in this conversation, and especially if the Ohio State wins coming. I'm with you. I'd lock it up for him. If he beats Ohio State, give it him. I don't think there's anyone you could accuse of being any more deserving than that. So you've got one left. I'll just rattle off one more before I get to my final two. I do have Dan Lanning in here.
Yeah,
I think
he's
that
if the award was given tomorrow, it'd
yeah,
be Dan Lanning.
if I'm giving it to a big team, I would give it to Dan Lanning because, yes, he's had his struggles with Oregon, but they beat Ohio State when they had to, and they've just looked dominant. There are very few
He's made
times,
such a quarterback-friendly scheme as well. To
yeah.
go from Bo Nix to Dylan Gabriel with no drop-off.
After that scare earlier in the year against Boise and to a lesser degree against Idaho, like they looked a bit rough to start with, but since they've hit conference play, they've just looked like an unstoppable juggernaut. And you beat Ohio State, you earned the right to be in there. And they've just changed conference. That can't be understated. They're not playing teams they know every year. These are a lot of teams they've never played before.
A
It's
lot of
difficult to
traveling.
adapt. Look at USC. Losing record this year. Look at Washington, losing record this year. Like a lot of the other teams who've made the move across have not been good. They've made it look seamless. So I think you've got to give Dan Lanning a lot of credit. And he, amongst the big teams, should be up there. Who's your main guy? Who you've got
My
in there?
main guy, for me, it's Rhett Lashley, the SMU head coach. So he's 41 at SMU. Current record to date, 26-10. Previous stint between 2018 and 19 as offensive coordinator and QB coach. So last year in the American, went 11-3, unbeaten 9-0 in AAC play. Like I say, was a juggernaut with Preston Storm. Like I say, took them all the way right to the end of the year. Like I say, with their high-powered offense. Like I say, and it's not changed. But a quarterback has changed. Like I say, he started the year like say Preston Stone, went for a couple of games where didn't look right. He made the big play, he made the big call, said, Preston, this is Jennings' team right now. He did it after the BYU game where they struggled. Never looked back. Like I say, currently 8-1, 5-9 player, top of the ACC with a 6-game win streak. Joint 11th in points per game, joint 14th in points per player. His defense is number 6 or joint 6 on the country against the run. They're looking at like number 11, joint 11th in the country, averaging 2 takeaways per game. Like I say, this man has done it with a relentless style of offense. Like I say, the pursuit of his defense, his backs, special teams, everything is tempo. Like I say, they break out the huddle quickly and they score heavily and they score with a complex offense. Like I say, that is like I said, they've taken a 5'9" wide receiver from Miami, made him a running back, absolutely shredding it. Like I say, they've taken a guy out of the portal, give him a home, asked him to play another position, and right now, like I say, he's such a good coach. And at 41, for me, he will be one of the highest profile names in the next coaching cycle. Like I say, he's not going to be an OC at a big school. He's coming to be an offensive coordinator and get involved in the play calling. Like I say, because his style, his brand of football, like I say, it's gone away from the air raid. Like I said, they're running the ball now. Like I said, this is not the throw it 60, 50, 60 times we saw a couple of years ago now. He's brought that balance and we're seeing success reap the rewards. And right now, like I say, he is the front runner. He's got a title cusp on the chance. And like I say, he's got a serious chance, an automatic playoff bid, and to be a top 4 team and get a bye. If he wins the ACC title, he wins Coach of the Year for taking SMU to a top 4 spot in the playoffs. Whatever happens, so be in the postseason. I think he'll lock it up. Like I say, because he is another one, duck to water, going from the American ACC. Maybe you can make a case that the depth in the AAC is as good as the ACC, if not better, because the ACC has looked terrible. But like I say, no drop off in play, still looks like a front runner, and he's brought that team to the most national relevance it's probably ever had. And
Mm.
yeah, great guy. Like I say, loves the team, like you say, former stint, like you say, they just look like they're going places. Like you say, the sky really is the limit for him and that program right now.
Yeah, and I agree completely. Like you say, they've come from the group of five to the power four, and you wondered whether they'd be able to deal with it. And they have, and every time they've been asked a question, they've answered early in the season when Florida State were not bad Florida State yet. You beat them, you beat Pittsburgh, you destroyed Pittsburgh in an all-ranked matchup the other week when everyone's kind of expecting Pittsburgh to sneak it and so you've done it with a quarterback controversy at the start of the year. You've had to do it with some injuries, and it's not been easy. Like when Sonny Dykes betrayed them and went to TCU and they went to the national title game, that probably will not have been easy for SMU fans to swallow and for him to see and watch. And after that all goes on, for them to be able to come into the ACC year one and get right to the top, I agree. He probably is low key one of my favorites for this. Just carry on what you're doing. It's just one of the best examples of completely turning a program round. And two championships in 2 years at two levels would be absolutely tremendous. The other guy I would throw into this conversation for similar reasons to what we had Dillingham in there, I think you have to have Kalani Sitake in there for BYU.
Yeah.
Again, BYU were not fancied this year at all. They've been an independent up until like the year before last. Last year was not good for them, their introduction into the Big 12. It was trial by fire. But, you remember his BYU teams back under Zach Wilson in the day. They were 10, 11 win teams flirting with playoffs, potentially able to get up there. This year, they're ranked six now. And you look at it, and like Retzlaff is not a household name. Like, they don't have that household
Yeah.
running back
He's
name
good.
we've known. Yeah,
He's
he's
not
good.
great though.
They're running the ball all right, but then you've just got this absolutely nasty defense,
Yeah,
which when it needs
takeaways, their
to,
safeties, their corners, they've got so many takeaways.
yeah, like this is a well-balanced team, and it's winning different ways. It's finding ways to win. To win that Utah game, yes, maybe you had a bit of a lucky call in there, but maybe you've earned that luck. Like you say, the SMU game they played, they maybe they got a bit back from that, but it's incredible the job he's done, and they're just defying all expectations. They've got some really good wins on the record. You keep expecting them to fail, and they don't. So if Sataki wins the Big 12 this year, no one was calling BYU to win it this year. Nobody. So, you've got to take it into consideration. It's a great job. I know he's been there a long time, and I love him. He's such a friendly guy as well. I love watching his post room stuff. He seems like the nicest guy in the world ever. Like the guy you would want to play for. So no wonder that team is doing so well. So yeah, I've got Sataki in there as well. So yeah, those are our coach of the year sort of guys in and around there right now. Say some of them for the job they're doing now, some of them for the position they've put themselves in and potentially could do getting forward. Right, let's finish this off out now. We're gonna quickly do the pick watch and maybe make some notes about week 12 because I've got about 10 minutes before I've got to get out of here to get this to transfer. So let's just get the pick watch stuff up. So this is a tough week, right? We've now reached, so for those who don't know, later in the season, a lot of ACC teams and SEC teams, etc., they schedule one of their non-con games for later in the year to effectively give themselves a bye week. Let's say you'll have like Alabama playing Chattanooga last year. They do it so they can rest guys up, get ready for the playoffs, etc. And while that's great, it makes it very difficult to find compelling games to do a pick watch for, and it's kind of a bit rough this week. They're very slim taken. So we've got a lot of group of five in here this week. We've got a lot of ones where it's going to be toss a coin and see what you can get. But hey ho, here we go. We start in the Big Ten, right? And we've got UCLA at Washington, and I've just deleted the one thing I need here so I can give us at least some background behind this. So where's my Big Ten stuff?
Oh,
UCLA at
two bad
Washington.
teams.
Yes, both teams are 3-4 in Big Ten play. Washington 5-5 on the year. UCLA are 4-5. UCLA though are on a three-game win streak at the
Big
minute.
win
Their
via, yeah, the big win
season,
via Iowa.
yeah, they beat Iowa this weekend just gone, they've found themselves in a little bit of form recently. They beat Nebraska, they beat Iowa, they beat Rutgers ever since that defeat to Minnesota, and yeah, it's not pretty. Ethan Garbers is still throwing a ton of picks, but they're getting there. Washington, it's just not worked right. Like you've got your nice shiny quarterback in there in Will Rogers. It's been tough sledding for them so far. They're going to take some time to be able to get themselves back in the spirit of things, and they are not coming off a 3-game win streak. They're coming off a blowout loss to Penn State. They did beat USC the week before, but then they've been twonked by Iowa, Indiana, and Penn State. They've not scored more than 20 points in 3 of those games. It's tough. This is a West Coast game. It's not a traditional Big Ten game. One team's hot, one team's not. Who've you got, UCLA or Washington?
I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to take a Huskies upset because I think Garbers is absolutely terrible.
You know what? Everyone in the pick watch so far has picked Washington. I think I'm going to go against the grain and pick UCLA for this one, but we'll see. One of the big fixtures we've got coming up next, Tennessee at Georgia. Now this,
No quarterback though.
is he officially ruled out?
I've seen he's ruled out for concussion.
I was told he was a game day decision. Are we officially ruling him out? Has he been official? I think we might need to just get a bit of confirmation on this. I'm told he's a game day decision up to this point, but I'm not 100% sure. I've got him here. It's on X. It's a game day decision. Oh no, you wait. Yeah. No, he isn't. No, he's not going to play. So, who is their backup? Their backup is, if I remember rightly, oh Christ, what's his name? Um,
Gaston Moore.
he's the one who came in for one snap against Bama and threw a pick. See, this is tough now because it's at Georgia as well. This is unfortunate because, yeah, I'm gonna have to go Georgia for this one, just for point of there's no Nico Armilieva in this and it's on the road.
Yeah,
But
I think Georgia can just run this one out and again run game in the D.
I mean, obviously Tennessee have their running back, but he's going to have like the day of all days. He's going to have to rush for 200, 250 yards and keep the ball. That Vols defense, though, they get takeaways, and Beck is throwing them out there at the minute. I think this might be close. I think Georgia might win it on a walk-off field goal or
I
something
think
like
it'll
that.
be close as well.
I think if Iamaleava was fit for this, Tennessee would win. I think it's going to be very, very close. So I'm going to have Georgia, but we will see with that. We got Clemson at Pittsburgh. Eli Holstein also is in concussion protocol or is it just head injury?
Head injury, but they just won't commit. As of right now, I'd be surprised if he plays because Pat doesn't. He's like I say, Pat he doesn't even know, which tells me they're not confident. And I don't trust Nate Yarnell.
No, he looked all right, but this is against Clemson. It's a
But
whole
like I say,
different.
Phil Maffa right now is chugging.
He is, but it's that Pittsburgh D line. It's a game changer. That's the trouble. Like I say, it had so much production, even against Virginia, and that Clemson line is vulnerable this year. If they can stop him running, but does the Pittsburgh? They don't have the running game with it, do they?
No,
Though.
it's Desmond Reed, isn't it?
Yeah.
He's meh.
It's a shame because on paper these are really good games. They've just been ruined by quarterback things. So yeah, I'm going to go Clemson.
I'll just go Clemson. Yeah, I think Maffa will be the difference because
I
I
would have
still
been
don't trust K Klubnik.
I would have been brave if Eli Holstein was fully committed to this. Speaking of really brave, come on, Ryan. It's Big 12 action. It's Arizona State at Kansas State. It's the Scat Man versus the DJ. They're all healthy. We're going to get one of the best running back battles of the season. You've said Kenny's up there for it. Arizona State are technically above them in the Big 12. They're both 4-2 in conference. K-State aren't invulnerable this year. And you've got a good team, a good quarterback, a good running back, a good enough defense. There is no reason you can't win this. And I am absolutely not giving my pick until you have, because I want to see how brave you're going to be.
Oh,
You've bet
every game
against
right
them
now feels like
all year.
every game feels like a shootout right now. Like I said, this is the first game for me that for them that's meant something. This
You're
actually means
nervous.
something
You're
because everything
nervous.
is on the line. If they win this game, they're kicking the door in. Like they've got a path to the title game. Oh, like I say, I've seen good Avery Johnson. I've seen bad Avery Johnson.
And you've bet against Arizona State all year, pretty
Yeah,
much.
like it's just got Levitt's fully healthy. Tyson's
And
doing
you've
it.
got Kenny. Kenny is he's one of the head coach of the year candidates. He's young, he's enthusiastic.
Yeah.
This is a movement.
Got a defense that can take. Yeah, do you know what? For the first time this year, I've now got hope. I think they will beat the Wildcats.
Breaking news, Ryan picks Arizona State, his team, in the pick watch,
So if they lose, we know why. It's because they gave me a glimmer of hope to cling on to.
which of course means I'm completely betting Kansas State. So thank you for that. We're gonna do that there. And if you get it, I'm happy for you. If not,
It will be a 70, 80 point game.
let's just call this revenge for what you did to Iowa State if they don't. So, blood and that there. Staying in the Big 12, we got Baylor at West Virginia next. West Virginia 4-2. So my dream is not dead of them being in the Big 12 title game. It just requires a lot to go right. Baylor are 3-3, but Baylor are on a 3-game win streak. West Virginia are on a 2-game win streak. These are two teams who are coming into it in good form, and thankfully, Garrett Green seems to have, gotten better from his injury woes recently. Beat Cincinnati the other day. No, sorry, Marchiol's playing, but Marchiol's doing all right, and we're running the ball pretty well. So this is close. I'm always going to go with my Mountaineers because I want them in the title game and I want them to be in it as long as possible. Baylor they wrecked Texas Tech. They beat Oklahoma State. They eked out that win against TCU. So can they do it? Who have you got?
I like Sawyer Robertson. Right now, he's playing very good football. I'll take the Baylor Bears if in an upset. No, I don't think it even would be an upset. I'm guessing it's in West Virginia though.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I think they can go there and win. Quarterback play is very
All
good
right.
right now.
Lovely. We've got a lot of American up next because this is where the near ones are. So we've got Florida Atlantic at Temple. Temple are 1-4 on the year. They're 2-7 altogether. Florida Atlantic are 0-5. They're 2-7 on year. This is basement battle
Oh God.
down there. Tom Herman has done a really bad job at Florida Atlantic this year. I'm surprised he's not been fired yet. This is on Temple's patch. Florida Atlantic have not won a game in the conference this year. Temple have won one. This is just, I'm not going to say I know a lot about this. I'm just going to kind of go with my gut here. Um, I've not bet on Temple on anything since Warner left, which was just a shame because I liked him when he was there. But Florida Atlantic at Temple.
Temple. I think Tom Herman's lost the players.
Okay, I've got Temple as well. Tulane at Navy. You've just made the case for Mr.
Two very
Newberry.
big different styles of football.
You've just put up the case for Mr. Newberry to win head coach of the year. This is his defining game. They need to win this. It'll be an Army Tulane championship game if this result goes the way it should. The American title game will be put up. Do Navy have one last shock in them because Tulane are playing good football, but again, they've not been playing as dominant football as they have in recent years. Some of these, like the last couple, have been really dominant, but they've beaten Temple and Charlotte. That is not much to ask about. They snuck by North Texas. Rice, yeah, they were okay with Rice, but there's been a few. Mind you saying that there have been a lot of blowouts actually. Louisiana
Yeah,
kept them
they've
close.
scored a lot of points of Tulane. Wow.
71 against UAB, 45 against South Florida, 45 against North Texas, 34 against Charlotte. Yeah, 52 against Temple. Navy score a lot of points though. Who's got the better defense? And it's at Navy's ground. This has been Navy's biggest game in years.
Uh, I'll go Tulane. Their passing offense might be too much for the Navy's passing secondary.
Oh, I know Brent would be. I know. In fact, I think Brent will go with his fellow service team here. I would like to say nobody's betting Navy. You know what? I'm far enough behind. I'll be the pariah. I want a full service team American battle here, so I want America. I want Navy to win that. And then we got North Texas at UTSA. North Texas are 2-3, 5-4 on the year. UTSA are also 2-3, but they're 4-5 on the year. North Texas are on a three-game losing streak. UTSA won their last game. It was against, if I remember rightly,
Memphis.
Memphis. Memphis, but the week before they had that massive
They lost to
meltdown against
Tulsa
Tulsa
when they
when they
blew a
gave up
30-point lead.
something stupid like that. So they've been very hit and miss this year, but they have won two of their last three. North Texas have just been running a gauntlet. Obviously, they got beaten up by Army the weekend just gone. They played Tulane the week before that. Then Memphis. Like they've played three of the best teams in the American in a row and they've lost them all, but it's not been a bad schedule they've been losing.
No. And like you say, Chandler Morris, if I remember rightly, he's the passing leader in the entire nation.
Um,
I think he's got the most passing yards in the country.
I would have to double check that. Um,
Their passing offense is just ridiculous.
no, he's fifth,
Ah,
but he's still over 3,000 yards already.
yeah. Uh, what interception? Mm.
I'm just
No,
going with my
give me
Roadrunners.
North Texas.
Okay, I'm going with the Roadrunners just because historically I'm a Roadrunners fan. Got Arkansas State at Georgia State next in the Sun Belt. Let me just quickly get that one up. Sun Belt, Arkansas State are 3-2 on the year. They're 5-4 on the season. Georgia State are 0-5 in the Sun Belt. They're 2-7 on the year. So Butch Jones, he's on the verge of qualifying for a bowl game. Um, they're not going to win the Sun Belt West because Louisiana are going to win that, but they're on the road. Georgia State are at home, even though they're the worst team. Who have you got?
Right, well, I'm behind heavily, so I need to take a risk, though. Give me a
Hmm.
Panthers upset.
Okay, there are a few different ones in here, so I'll go with Butch. I want him to get to bowl eligibility after last year, so it'd be a good result for them there. And then we got Hawaii at Utah State to finish this off. Hawaii in the Mountain West are they're not as bad as I thought they were actually.
Two
They're
and three.
2-3. They're 4-6 on the year. Utah State are 1-3, 2-7 on the year. It's just not been a good year for those guys. I'm going to go Hawaii win here to finish this off just because they're my spirit animal.
Uh, where is it? Where is the game?
It's Utah State. It's at Utah State. Hawaii have got to travel over.
It's Hags. Utah State are terrible at home, but Hawaii are better on the road. Give me Hawaii then. Yeah, because Utah State are awful at home.
Yeah, they are indeed. So we've got Hawaii sweep there. And just very quickly, because we've got half an hour before the next one and we need to get this thing done. I mean, in terms of other games, I said this last week. There are not going to be seven ranked upsets this week. I would be shocked if they were, but I will read them out quickly. If you see any potential upsets, let me know. Oregon on the road at Wisconsin, Ohio State on the road at Northwestern, Texas on the road at Arkansas, Penn State on the road at Purdue, Kansas on the road to BYU, Virginia on the road to Notre Dame, Mercer, your Bears, on the road to Alabama. Boise State on the road to San Jose State, Boston College on the road to SMU, New Mexico State on the road to Texas A&M, Utah on the road to Colorado, Washington State are on the road to New Mexico, Louisville are on the road to Stanford, number 23 Missouri play number 21 South Carolina, LSU are on the road to Florida, Tulane are on the road to Navy. Any upsets potentially scream there? I don't know what the upset would be in Missouri, South Carolina, but hey.
Like I said, yeah, I don't feel like either would be strong favourites. Uh,
I don't see any personally.
I think Florida will give LSU a good game,
Yeah.
even though Warnock is a freshman. If I'm looking at any game where I look at an upset, uh, Old
Louisiana
Domi
Monroe,
Old
Auburn.
Dominion,
Ooh, where are they playing?
James Madison.
Ooh.
That could be.
Old Dominion at James Madison. Let's quickly look for Sun Belt title purposes. James Madison are 3-2. Old Dominion are 3-2. Marshall and Georgia Southern are top of the East at the minute on 4-1. So that effectively is keep yourself in the title race. That is.
I mean, Kennesaw State against Sam Houston. Could they wreck the Bearcats?
Crazy, wouldn't it?
Yep. It's in Kennesaw as well. It's in Georgia. They've
Yep.
got a point to prove.
Yep. It's crazy. There's a lot of permutations this week. We'll go back to the permutations of the league next week in terms of what's there, but I'm not.
Auburn, Louisiana Monroe. That, that's calling to me.
What the
Auburn are
hell?
terrible.
What the hell happened in the Buffalo game last night? 51-48. I'll have to check that out later.
Do you think the Warhawks could cause an upset against Auburn?
They've lost 2 in a row. And did you see their offensive line coach got suspended for like pushing down one of his O linemen at the weekend?
Yep.
Feels like a bit of feels like a bit's come out the wagon there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see particularly much else here that gets me. Maybe Murray State beat Kentucky. Who knows? What a win for the HBCUs that'd be.
Massachusetts,
They're playing
Liberty.
Liberty. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe UMass have not been good this year though. They've not been good at all. Um, no, I can't see anything else. South Alabama, Louisiana. If Louisiana won that, they win the Sun Belt West. I don't think there's any other title qualifications on the line at the minute. Army are on their bye before the Notre Dame game, so they get to sit and rest for that one. No, I don't see any more. Yeah, I think any others you want to mention, or I think we're about there, aren't we?
I think that's everything, yeah.
All right. Thanks ever so much for everyone who's joined us this evening, as always. Been good fun. Talked about head coach of the year candidates, about week 11, the Holy War, all the stuff that went on there. A lot of good bits in there. Talked about the resurgence of Louisiana, the Ragin Cajuns. If you want a preview on them, go back to earlier in the show. In terms of next shows, the main podcast will be up whenever this one's finished downloading. I apologize for running a little over, Matt, but yeah, we do that. That's our thing. You wouldn't love us any other way. We'll be back in a week talking about week 12. We'll probably start doing some player stuff as well. The Senior Bowl invites, the Shrine Bowl invites have started going out today. So hopefully this time next week, we'll have enough out there to be able to start talking about a few of the players who are going to the All-Star game. So we'll start taking a look at some of these guys as well. Don't forget you can find us at Roar of the Lions UK. Just type it in, you will find us. We appreciate you as always, been in there with us. Brent quickly says, can the Badgers get an upset? Is that Wisconsin, the Badgers, isn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know who the hell did Wisconsin play this
Oregon.
week. Oh God. No, no, I don't think so. More chance of Northwestern beating. No, there's not, but who knows? We'll be surprised. If we come back with 7 ranked losses next week, it's going to be a hell of a show. But yeah, thank you, Brent. Thank you, Mile Marker. We appreciate you all. Mile Marker goes, such great breadth of teams and players, guys. Thank you. Brent goes, go Army. Absolutely. Do us proud against Notre Dame next week, please. We'll see you back on the podcast shortly. We're back for the Jacksonville Jaguars preview. Thank you, Ryan. And we shall see you again soon. One Pride.
Recording stopped.